and welcome to Bible study tonight. Um, Before we get started, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go over our daily scripture for tonight, November 26th, coming out of Enoch. Yes, it's okay. Coming out of Enoch, chapter 105, verses 26 through 27. And as we go through these verses, we're going to just take a little bit of time and and just go ahead and listen. We're working through a couple of things right now, so have mercy on us, have a little grace on us as we continue. Now, as we're looking at our daily scripture for tonight, coming out of the Sefer, it reads, I will bring them into the splendid light of those who love my holy name, and I will place each of them on a throne of glory his own, and they shall be at rest during unnumbered periods. Righteousness is the judgment of Elohim. For to the faithful shall he give faith in the habitations of uprightness. They shall see, they shall see those who have been born in darkness, unto darkness shall be cast, while the righteous shall be at rest. Sinners shall cry out, beholding them, while they exist in splendor, and proceed forwards to the days and periods prescribed to them. And again, that's our daily scripture for tonight, November 26th. For all of those that have been with us, you know that we've been reading in First Kings, and as we were reading in First Kings, we went all the way from the end of Solomon's days, and right now we're right at where Elijah is getting ready to pass the torch over to Elisha. And tonight we're taking a break from our regular Bible study, and we're going to take a little time with our brother Dana. Please say hello to everybody.
Hey, family. I'm honored and I'm excited about being with you tonight. So hopefully, at the end of our gathering, you'll feel the same way.
Yes, yes. All right, so tonight, guys, we're gonna take a little time and we're gonna have like a deep dive into everything that Brother Dana has been called into. I had been kind of checking him out and following him for a little bit of time, and when I heard his story, it really stuck out to me because it had so many things that we as individuals go through, but it's also a rhema word. It's a word for the time that we in right now. So we just have like a loose schedule as far as what we be going over. We will most definitely be going into our raffles, and we can't wait for those. But right now, we're going to go ahead and get rocking and rolling. And we're going to kind of turn things over to Brother Dana and just let him go ahead and start off. Right now, what we're going to talk about is the early life and the experiences that you had, Brother Dana, leading up to the awareness that the Most High, what the Most High was calling for you to do.
Okay. Again, family, I just want to thank you for joining tonight, and I'm hoping that my testimony will do one thing and one thing alone, and that is to solidify that you are the true chosen people of the Most High Yah God. And so if that's accomplished tonight, then all of this time is worth it for me. Uh, so brother, you want me to kind of start at the beginning, and I'm gonna do that and kind of go flow as quickly as I can. So to give you an understanding of how I became who I am on social media, known as Brother Dana. So I was born in rural southern Minnesota, 1972. I just celebrated my 53rd birthday here, the 5th of November. And so I was
Hey,
born and raised in rural southern white Minnesota. I mean, we didn't have mega back in the 80s and the 90s when I was, or the early 90s when I was still home. But my hometown is definitely mega. So that gives you an understanding of what I was brought up under and in. The only about 4,500 people. I graduated with a class of 68 other students, and of us 68, two students were Mexican. That was the end of the diversity within my hometown. And I'm going to ask you just to forgive me on some of the ways I'm going to share and explain things, but I'm doing that because I want just to give you the full impact. And so I never liked saying Mexican because in my town, they were never called Mexicans. They were always called no good goddamn Mexicans. And so I share that again just for you to really understand the depth of really white supremacy and hatred for people of color, whether they were Mexican and or black. But because we didn't have any black family members or anybody around, you know, the level of racism I was taught was like in school. It was sometimes it was outwardly taught by my family. I remember as a probably around a 8th grader, 6th grader, we were watching some sporting event at my grandmother's house, and halftime show or whatever it was. um and I just his name just went off. Not Ray Charles, but give me the other blind brother, piano player and singer. I just lost his name. It just
Stevie Wonder.
Stevie Wonder. Stevie Wonder was playing, and I remember my uncle saying, "No good God blankety blank Nigger." And I sat there as a kid, and I was like, "Wow, you here you're mocking this man who does more blind than you, Uncle Mark, do with full eyesight." So I share that story because even in that age, not only was I sensitive to the Mexicans that were classmates, Laura, who was a really good friend of mine, but I also, when it came to the jokes that were told about you as my black family, it just never sat right with me. Um, in school, when we would want to determine who's going to be the leader, and then this is also not just during recess, this was in gym class. We would put our feet in the middle and you'd go eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Well, we never said tiger. I never heard the word tiger. Eeny, miny, miny, mo, catch a Nigger by his toe. And if he hollers, you make him pay. My mama told me you are not it. So when my white family say they're not racist, they don't even understand what it means because we are inundated with racism. Whether it's my family would have, most of my family would probably object to seeing a lynching or an abusing going on unfairly to a black individual. I believe they would not like that. Would they stand and interfere or intervene? Probably not. So I say that where my father and mother never came out and said anything really negative, except for my father would tell me this growing up: you better hope they never get a black president, because if you do, they're going to do to us what we've done to them. And that always stuck in my mind, like, what? you know, again, this is back in the 80s. I graduated from high school in 1991. So that is the upbringing and the mindset in the background that I grew up under. We were strong Lutherans. We went to church pretty much every Sunday. I was confirmed. So, I was going to make it to heaven, because as a Lutheran, you believe that through infant baptism and then through confirmation, you you get your way to heaven. Um, in high school, I always vowed that once I got out of high school, I was never going to walk into a church, because my sophomore, junior, and senior year, I worked at Hardee's. We had one fast food restaurant, and that was Hardee's, and it came in when I became a sophomore at 16 years old. Otherwise, family, we didn't have no fast food restaurants. We had one gas station, well, maybe two, and then we had two stoplights. So it was, like I said, this is a very rural town in a the next biggest town of probably 50,000 was 45 miles away, and that was called Mankato. So we were very isolated. But those years in working at Hardee's, on Sundays, they would offer free coffee to senior citizens, and until like 10 o'clock. But sometimes the church service might go 5 minutes over. And so these Christians would come back in to Hardee's and would command and demand this hot free coffee, even though they were over the time limit. And they were very rude. So I began to really walk away from God, because I'm like, if this is what going to church does, you're prejudiced. You guys are all racist against the Mexicans. You're mean. You're cruel. So I really was like, as soon as I leave home, God, you can go straight to wherever you came from, because I want nothing to do with you, because I see the people that go every Sunday to learn about you. And they're some of the most evil, nasty, mean people. So my summer before my senior year in high school, this would be July of 1990. Next door neighbors who I grew up with the young ladies, but they were 4 and 5 years older. So at this time, I was going to be a senior in high school, and they were already a couple years into college. And they were involved with Campus Crusade. They were strong Christians. They invited me in that July, the second Saturday or second weekend of 1990, to in Minnesota. What they do yearly is called the Sunshine Festival. And what it was like an outdoor Christian weekend, Friday, Saturday, and then everybody would go home on Sunday. And at this time, there was between probably 20 and 25,000 people that would come for this weekend. And some of them would camp, some of us would stay at a hotel, but we would come for all day Friday and then all day Saturday for different Christian bands and singers to come and perform. And so when I was asked, my parents trusted these young ladies, but I thought in my mind, this was just an excuse for us to go and really be like the Christians that I saw in my small town, drinking, partying. So I was really excited about going. But when I got there, I didn't notice all of that. But I bring up this story because it was the last night. It was that Saturday night. I grew up very depressed. God intervened when I was a junior in high school. My mother was a cook at our local middle school. So I know that between the hours of like 10:30 and 12:30, she's serving kids. And so I left school during my junior year in high school. I went home because I had dealt with so much depression and suicidal thoughts. I had gone home and I grabbed my dad's gun that was in one cabinet, and I went and got the bullets that he kept in another cabinet. And I had it all mapped out exactly where and how I was going to accomplish this. But before I could do it, all of a sudden my mother came in and came home during that lunch period, because I don't even know the reason. I don't know if she wasn't feeling good. I don't know. But all I know is God used my mom coming home at that moment to literally save my life. And then it was just a few months later that I went to this Christian outdoor concert. And it was that Saturday night, Michael W. Smith, very popular in the white evangelical music realm. He sang a song called Pray for Me. And what it says, pray for me and I'll pray for you that love will bring us back around. And all I can say is it's like I was isolated at one moment. And I looked around me and I felt this love. I felt something in the atmosphere. And so, as I felt that kind of being isolated, I remember turning my eyes up and I said to God, I want to feel that love. I want to know that love. After that, it was probably a good 10 to 15 minutes that I don't remember anything. I remember becoming very like lightheaded. I remember becoming like all of a sudden, sometimes I explain it as if you've ever gotten up real quick, and when you get up, you're all of a sudden for those few seconds, it's like your world is kind of distant. That's how I felt. What I thought wasn't very long had to be long, because when I came to like my senses, once that lifted off me, I was literally in front of the stage. So that means I had made my way probably through 10,000 people to get to that place. And I was on my knees. And that is the moment that the creator, I called him God at that time, but that is the moment when the creator came into my life. And because he had saved me from so much depression, I was like, I'll do whatever you want me to do. And I'm going to ask you to send me to those who are living in this depression so that I can share with them the love that you shared with me that has snapped me out of this suicidal, depressed mindset. And it was from there that I came home and, I listened to some bad, what we call rock and roll white music, like Quiet Riot, Metallica, their lyrics were bad. And I remember coming home smashing every single one of those tapes. I didn't want anything to do with that no more. A couple weeks later, because I sang and I did some stuff in the small town. And so there was a junior Miss pageant, and they asked me to be the MC. When I went to be the MC, a young lady who lived in our town, her father was a pastor at a prominent Lutheran church. Even though they lived there, she went to a school 30 miles away to a Christian school. So I did not know Tanya. But at one point, when they were doing the young ladies were doing their talent, she got on this baby grand piano and she began to play a hymn, Great is Thy Faithfulness. And it stirred up in me like, oh my gosh, she must be a Christian. And because I had a love for God, I went over to her. And I only share that as a part of my journey because I had no Bible teaching. I had no Bible teaching really preachers or teachers. And yet I met this young lady and we dated my whole senior year. And 7 nights a week, her dad, who was a pastor, would have Bible study with Tanya, her 4 sisters, and Mrs. Wessendorf. And at one point, I was invited. And so, as many nights a week as I could, I joined their Bible study. And I had direct contact to a man that was able to begin to guide me in my beginning walk. Yes, with Christ, but with God. Um, so I ended up graduating in 1991, and I went to a 2-year small school in Waldorf College, small town, just like St. James, where I grew up. But Forest City, Iowa, out in the boonies, had Waldorf College, which, like I said, was a 2-year small school. So I went there because I wanted to be a small animal vet. Um, and I went there because it was small, because I wasn't the most intelligent person. Uh, and so the first year that I was there, I already kind of knew that I wasn't going to make it to be a small animal vet because chemistry already knocked me off my feet. And I'm like, this is just the beginning. There's no way. But I say that because God had a different direction for me. And I went home that summer before my last year at Waldorf, where I would have had to declare a different major, otherwise it would have set me back. And when I went to help the small animal vet that I worked with, because I had rabbits and stuff growing up, that's how out in the country I had chickens and all of that. They cut a dog or something, and I blacked out. And to this day, at 53 years old, if I see blood, I might have to sit down. But I laugh at it because God sealed the deal in directing me where He wanted me to go. He was like, no, son, I know you love animals. You want to be a small animal vet. It's not about your intelligence, but it's about my purpose. And so I graduated from Waldorf College, and that summer I was going to go and serve as a summer camp director on a U.S. military base in Ansbach, Germany, to help that base uh, by giving their kids something to do during the day because of them being on an Air Force or like an Army base in a different country. The kids don't really have access to summer programs. So we were hired as a groups of people of college students to come and put on summer camps for U.S. military kids across the globe. I was offered a position where I went to Ansbach, Germany. So I knew I was doing that after Waldorf, and I was graduating from Waldorf in the spring of 1993. I did not know which college. I did not know nothing. And on the day that I graduated, a fellow good friend of mine who graduated the year before came back to my graduation. And before I left campus for the last time, Jody and I decided to take a walk. And as we were walking, Jody asked me, "Well, Dana, what are you going to do now?" Most of my classmates that were going further education had already declared which colleges they were going to and the degrees they were going to get. And I was like, "Jody, I don't know." I said my plans were all changed, and I know God wants me to work with youth, but I said I don't know. So as we were going through this part of our campus called the atrium, a gentleman was walking. Now I knew him by face because we were a very small college, but I knew nothing about him as what he taught because none of my classes I had with him. But Jody, while she was a student assistant to this man called Professor Orr. And so as we were walking through the atrium, Professor Orr looked at Jody and Jody looked at Professor Orr and said, "Wow, you're back." They exchanged a hug and they talked for a little bit. And then Professor Orr looked at Judy and said, "Guess what, Judy? I'm leaving Waldorf." He said, "God's called me to Moody Bible Institute in downtown Chicago." My ears perked up, my spirit flung up. I'm like, Moody Bible Institute, downtown Chicago. It was that interaction that God opened that door to direct me to Moody Bible Institute. When I applied, because I graduated probably like in May from Waldorf. So a lot of times these colleges have kind of shut off their application process by then for students in the fall. But Professor Orr told me to apply anyway. So I applied to Moody. I initially got a response back that they said, they've got hundreds of students that apply. Because, see, Moody Bible Institute does not charge students tuition, they only charge students room and board. So when I was there in 90, the half part of 94, 95, and 96, for my whole year of education at Moody Bible Institute was only about $4,500, between $2,500 and $2,600 a semester, depending on the amount of books I might have to buy for certain classes. So they had a waiting list. D.L. Moody, who founded the school, said that he did not want tuition to hinder people from being missionaries, because if they owed bills from going to school, they would be kind of kept from really being able to go out into the mission field. So that was the purpose behind Moody not charging tuition, because you didn't get a liberal arts degree at Moody. You could get an education degree, but everything pretty much was surrounded by ministry. They had an incredible aviation program, but that's because who flew their missionaries into these remote areas across the globe? Private planes. And that's why Moody created a mission of pilots giving their life to fly missionaries across the globe. Or a missionary will become a pilot themselves to fly. But I was going to go in there for youth ministry. I wanted to be a youth pastor at a church. But ultimately, I wanted to be a youth pastor out in the wilderness, because I loved what in the summer when I grew up, we would, as kids, probably fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, eighth grade, maybe ninth grade, we would go to summer Bible camp for a week. So, we'd get our sleeping bag and mom would pack us up and drop us off to go to summer camp for a week at the Bible camp. And so I had done that as a kid. And then I was a counselor also during my first summer at Waldorf College. I went off into the wilderness and I loved it. Sitting around the campfire playing Kumbaya, that's what I did. Lived with the bears, and that's what I wanted to do the rest of my life. But I wanted to be the director of that camp, so I would live there all the time and plan the activities and stuff for the young people that would come during those weeks. And so that's what I declared at Moody, but they came back and said, there's a 1 to 2 year waiting list, and that they would put me on the list. So I'm now in Europe, and I extended my stay in Europe for about 4 months so I could spend some extra time in Avignon, France. But I traveled all of Europe, Rome, Austria, Czechoslovakia. I was 20 years old, and I was jumping on trains every weekend or every long break that I had. And I was going somewhere within the countries of Europe. So I learned a lot. Um, so one that day, I only called my parents about once every 2 weeks because of the cost. So I called, and on one of the calls, my mom said, "Dana, Moody said they'll get you in this fall." I couldn't go in that fall because my duties and everything extended when I had to be on campus as a new student. So I had to decline, and they said you can start just that next semester, which was then in January of 1994. So instead of starting in the fall of 93, I started in January of 94. So even though there was a 1 to 2 year waiting list, I got a position immediately. And what had to hold me back was that I made plans, that I couldn't really change, but I still got to Moody Bible Institute within 6 months, not no 1 to 2 year waiting list. And so you are explained to you what I started Moody in wanting to be a youth pastor, but specifically out in a camp setting. And that was in January when I arrived to Chicago for the first time. My mom and dad dropped me off. My mom cried, thinking she'll never see me again. We hear all these things about the city of Chicago. And Moody Bible Institute is literally right downtown. If you've ever been to Chicago, we are just blocks from Magnificent Mile. However, on the other side of Moody, just blocks, is Cabrini Green. You will know Cabrini Green if you watch Good Times. That sitcom Good Times was filmed in Cabrini Green in Chicago. So Moody was halfway to the richest people in Chicago, the Magnificent Mile. And a couple blocks on this side, you had the poorest people in the city of Chicago, those who lived in Cabrini Green. So I was at Moody, and it was in March. I was sitting on our floor meeting that we had like weekly. And one of the mandates at Moody is that, we had to dress up, y'all. I had to wear dress pants. I had to tuck in my shirt. We were not allowed to watch movies, whether we were on campus or off campus, whether it was summer or during the school year. We were not allowed to dance. We were not allowed to drink alcohol. I almost got kicked out because I drank some alcohol when I went to communion at the Lutheran church because I forgot they still used alcohol, where most of the Baptist churches at the time that I went to, or the more of the evangelical churches, they used grape juice. And so I told the RA, and he had to report me, to the dean of students. And I was literally put on probation for drinking that alcohol that I was served while taking communion at my grandma's church. Well, my dad called the president, and they squashed that within a day. And actually, the president called me and apologized. And from that point on, President Joseph Stoll, him and I kind of became buddies because he said this to me: "You're a rebellious soul, but your rebellion is for good." And so I just throw that out to you. So here we are in March, and we're at this meeting, and we're mandated also to find a church home while we're a Moody student. Because if we're going out into the ministry, we are mandated to be a member of a church to serve where we need to serve. We are also required to do what was called a PCM. It was called a Practical Christian Ministry. So according to your major, if you're in music or education or youth ministry, every semester that you are a student, you had to do a PCM at either another church or some type of youth Christian gathering, because it was really hands-on ministry. And so I hadn't found a church home. And so two brothers on the floor. Now, Moody was probably 95% black or white, and probably a 1% American Black, and maybe a couple percent African. So the racial issues on Moody Bible campus was also off the chain. I believe it wasn't until 1995-ish that they'd actually allow a white student and a black student to dorm together on campus. Um, so anyway, these guys invited me to visit their church. And I said, okay, sure. And they said, well, it's on the west side. Well, family, I was new to Chicago. I didn't know what south side, west side, east side. Well, that's the lake, north side. I didn't know the difference. And they said, well, we'll have to take the subway and all that to get there. I'm like, cool. I want to ride the subway. And so that Sunday came, we got on the subway in Chicago within kind of the city limits, or not, I mean, within the city. The subway is underneath, but there's areas that it does go above ground. And that's why sometimes we refer to it as the L. That's when it's above the ground. So as we were going to the west side, we made a couple uh, changes underneath while in the subway. But then at one point, it was above ground. And every stop that we made prior to getting to our stop, the Austin Boulevard stop, I began to notice something, that the white people that were on the train were walking off. And if anybody was getting in, it was blacks. And so here I am in Chicago, going on the subway, being warned that the city is going to kill me, and certain places not to go by family and churches and friends. I'm sitting on this subway thinking, oh my gosh, where are we going? Where are they taking me? Is this what they meant when they said it's on the west side? It's on a black side? We got to Austin, and because it's above, I knew by what I saw that I was in what I was taught was a black ghetto. The place where I, as a person, should never go, because if I go, I'm either going to get shot, killed, or robbed. And here I am, family, getting off this train with my two white friends from campus, asking, where's the church? And he said, 4 or 5 blocks that way. And I was like, I think Whitney Houston said it, hell to the nah. I was like, what? But because I didn't know how to get back, and because of just all that fear, and then I thought, well, look, James has been coming to this church now. This will be his 4th year, he told me. And Keith said this is his 3rd year coming to this church. And they're not dead. I mean, literally, that's what I kind of told myself. They never told me they've got robbed. And I'm really trying to be vulnerable and just really honest and open with you, that went through my mind at that time. And so I was like, you know what? It's Sunday afternoon. I mean, what can
Everything
happen?
everything that you're saying is completely fine. Just keep
Okay.
going. I have
Okay.
it mute just so there's no echo, but that's why I'm just shaking my head. But man, this is an awesome testimony. Just
Okay.
keep going.
Okay. Thank you, brother. Um, so I went. Well, this was my first experience in mostly an all black church. It was a traditional black church, and I hate saying that because what does that mean? But for what I knew, that was a traditional black church with the service that, number one, went about what, 3.5 hours long. And us white folk, we went to church and it was 1 hour. And if the pastor went a little minutes over, the congregation got mad because look, the roast is in the oven. We got other things to do, Pastor. So, you know, when that service was like 3.5 hours long, I was like, wow. But the worship, the preaching, just everything of that service was just, actually, it was beautiful to me. And it was life changing in the sense that I had never been around a group of people, and I can only explain it this way because I'm where I'm at today, that had an innate love for their creator. I don't sense that with white Gentiles. Yes, some of us, we do. We have that sold out love for him. But but amongst my black brothers and sisters, even from that get-go, the spirit, all that, it touched me in a way that I had never experienced anything like that. So sometimes it's hard for me to really just put that in words because I only have my past to be able to kind of compare. And then, the message, I mean, it was a great service. When it was over, it had snowed a little bit in Chicago. So when we had to go back those 4 or 5 blocks, we followed just this small footpath where people had gone before, because it was about probably a good 4 inches. And so as my two friends were walking single file in front of me, and I was trailing them. And all of a sudden, not even a block from the church, I look up, and here was coming 5 young black men on that same narrow footpath. And I thought, oh God, do I run across the street? No, because there was 4 or 5 of them standing at the corner in front of the store. I told my mom and dad I needed a cell phone. But then at the same time, I started to remember Pastor Raleigh Washington's message, and I didn't share that purposefully. But his message was about the power of stereotypes. And what he shared is that even before a stereotype manifests into a racist behavior or thought, that stereotype is already doing damage because you are stereotyping a group of people, not knowing whether that's true or not. And if it's not true, you are already destroying that person, even before you react, and then it becomes, if it's racial, a racial negative behavior. And so as I was walking, that message came up, and then the Spirit put in the parable of the farmer, where he scattered some seed here and there. And I remember the Spirit saying, the message that you heard, son, are you going to allow that to fall on pavement? Or are you going to allow that to fall into your heart of good soil so that it can produce a righteous or a good harvest? And it was at that moment that I said, I want that seed to fall in my heart so that my heart and my life will produce good. And so as we approached these gentlemen, they crossed my two friends first. Now, James had gone to that church all these years because he was going to be an urban pastor. He wanted to live the rest of his life as a white guy in the inner city black community to be a pastor. Keith wanted to do the same, but as a youth pastor. So they would serve this church because during the week, the sanctuary was their gym. So they worshiped there on Sundays or Wednesday nights, but on other nights, it was a basketball court. It was a, study place, tutoring place. So Pastor Raleigh Washington in Chicago was well known for Circle Urban Ministries, and he actually has a book written, a couple of them. So here we are walking back, and I watched the interaction between my friends and these guys to learn myself how to interact or react. And so when they said, "Hey, what's up? What's up?" I heard them, and so when they approached me, I said, "Hey, what's up?" But before I could even get those words out, I got a fist to my face, punched me here and busted my lip. Before I kind of knew what was going on, one of them had picked up an ice chunk. And I remember my mind thinking, Oh, I'm from Minnesota. I hope he doesn't think he's going to have a fun softball or a snowball fight with that. That's a chunk of ice. That's going to hurt the person it hits. It hit me in the back of my head. And then I remember getting another punch in the gut. I because of that ice chunk, it caused me to fall to the ground. And then I got a kick. And after he kicked me, he said, "Welcome to racism." And the five young men ran off. My two friends were still walking and talking. They didn't know I was getting beat up because when they said, "Welcome to racism," I was in the snow on the ground. I saw them turn around. And there was no way of faking that. I saw them. And I saw all of that because I know that the Creator told me that that was my, like Saul on the road to Damascus experience. Because I say this, it wasn't the punches that hurt me the most. It was the punch of the words "welcome to racism" that literally hit my soul. Yes, for probably a few weeks, it went through my mind. Why did they beat me up? I didn't do nothing. I mean, that stuff went through my mind. But I couldn't get past that ache in my soul from those words, "welcome to racism." So finally, at one point, I remember God taking me to Nehemiah. This was probably within about 3-4 months after this situation happened. He took me to Nehemiah and I began to read Nehemiah. And then it hit me when he repented. Nehemiah said, "God, I ask you to forgive not only me, but also my ancestors, my forefathers, for their disobedience, causing the great city of Jerusalem to be in such disarray." It impacted me because Nehemiah reminded me of what I needed to do. Not only did I need to ask forgiveness for what my forefathers had done to my Black brothers and sisters, I also had to take responsibility for what I had done. And that is when the God had really solidified my calling or my purpose. And it was at that moment that I said, "Then God, I need you to help me the best way you can for me, a white man, to understand racism and the pain that was behind those words from such young men." And so for the next almost 30 years, God did just that. And I don't laugh at it, but I laugh because he literally took my offer, if I want to say it that way. Um, and he took me there. And as I'm laughing and saying that, family, I say that if now that I know what I went through to learn what I learned, I would do it again. Although those 30 years in Chicago were some of the most challenging, depressed, hard years I've ever lived, because not only did I start to see and learn systematic racism, I saw what it was doing to my Black family who I was falling in love with. And when I would go home to my white churches, I used to be like, eventually I was adopted or brought into what it's a large white evangelical parachurch organization called the Navigators. They're across the globe. They got probably 10,000 missionaries across the globe. I was a part of them. So as a Christian, y'all, I had the name of Moody Bible Institute behind me. That's one of the top prestigious, well-known white evangelical schools. Kind of like Paul, I had the best of the best. And at one point, I had the stamp of approval of the Navigators on me. And so the Navigators wanted me to help them, a white organization, come into the inner city black community. But like most white organizations, they're not there to serve, they're there to control, but I won't get into that at this moment. So if I lost my train of thought. So it was just through that ordeal, I lost a little bit of my train of thought, but it was through that situation, through Nehemiah, that I really had said, take me on this journey. And God did take me on that journey in those 30 years where I began to see systematic racism. I think this is where I was going. Um, but when I take the message to my white family, I, I was so like appalled or couldn't believe why they didn't want to embrace the truth. When I would tell them, look, we've been taught that black people are like this, but they're not. They're like this. you know, I thought my white family, both blood and non-blood, would be like, wow, Brother Dana, thank you for bringing this back to us firsthand. But they didn't. I brought a group of my young guys home with me, and we went to church. And as we were walking out of church, I got all of these great compliments. Oh, Dana, you do such a good job with these young boys. They're just not like the rest of them, are they? The rest of who? Well, you know what we're talking about. No, I don't. What has there been other? I mean, no. What the rest of who are you talking about? And that's when I really began to see the racism greater in the religious system, even in than the correctional system, the judicial system, the education system, the professionalism system. I saw more racism in the white church. And so that was the stuff that really began to pile up on me during those years. But I walked the streets with gang members. God took me out on the streets. And I literally walked the streets and got to know Lala, Pee Wee, Q-Tip, and I would just walk and I would silently pray. Pretty soon the gang members, most of them were from a gang called the Farwell Boys. Finally, they'd be like, man, brother, who you on, man? What you want? They thought maybe I was a 5-0, an undercover cop, or sometimes a social worker, But I would tell them, no, man, I'm just a pastor. I'm a youth pastor. I'm just walking the streets asking God to protect you. That was just what I was doing. I had then, I need to share this. Shortly after I made the decision that I needed to do what God had called me to do and going into the inner city, He opened up the door for me to get a position as a youth pastor at a church. But this church was in the inner city on the north side of Chicago. And that was in May of 1994. So the altercation happened in March. Couple months later is when I did with Nehemiah. And I said, take me so I can learn. And then that May is when I started at this church. This was a predominantly white church that in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, it probably had 1,000 members. It had a nice sanctuary. It had a huge chapel. It had enough room for 500 people to sit in their auditorium for a Sunday dinner together. They had their own trays with their emblem painted on them. I mean, this was a very wealthy white church. Their stage was far better than my high school stage with floor lights, ceiling lights. However, when I got there, that church had only 30 members. They hadn't had dinner there for years. The average age of the members was probably 68 to 75 years old. They wanted to bring in a youth pastor to bring in the young people, hoping that the parents will come. But see, Rogers Park used to be predominantly white in the 50s, 60s, 70s. And then all of a sudden in the 80s, the blacks started to move in because it was a little more open for diversity than other areas of the city, which then caused the Great White Flight Syndrome, where the people at the church went out to the nearby suburbs. However, they continued to drive in to go to church. but I'll just speak why their church was dying. They were racist. They didn't think they were, but they were racist. So they brought me on as a Moody student to be a part-time youth pastor that I'd open the church one night a week, and then I would be there Sunday morning to teach Sunday school for kids that came to Sunday school, which I never really had any until I started the program. And so that's what I came to do. But the kids weren't white. The kids were black. The neighborhood was not white. The neighborhood was now a black inner city, what again people would call the ghetto. And so that's what caused me to start walking the streets because I saw the guys hanging out on them. And as I walked those streets to invite them to come to church to play basketball, because I took that old fellowship hall and I made it into a basketball court. We had no heat in there, but at least during the winter, the kids would come in to play because the parks were closed. I started with about 5 young men. And I left that church about 8 years later, but I would see between 250 to 500 young people from the neighborhood that would come in to play basketball, use my recording studio that I set up to get a meal, to study. I mean, the church was hopping. And the way I know is that those members, they beat the crap out of me. I that's another area where I saw racism. The elder of the church came on a Saturday to pray with the pastor, which they never really came. I had a group of young men in the gym because I put together, out of all of them, I put together a leadership team and they were a basketball team. We were playing. And Elder John walks into that gym and says, Dana, get these damn blankety blank NIGGERs out of this gym. We are praying. We never met at that church again with that group of guys. It crushed them. We used the YMCA. I still was having my night programs, but they never wanted to come back on a Saturday in case elder and pastor showed up to pray. When I left after 8 years, one of the elders came up to me and he said, we never thought you would make it. I said, what do you mean? Ken? He said, we brought you here to bring us white people. And so he said, we did everything in our power to get you to leave. He said, I want to apologize for how mean and nasty we have been to you for these 8 years. And I said, well, your meanness was not comparable to the love and the privilege I had working with these young people. But that taught me right there the depth of racism that lies within the white church. To a point when I would talk to some of the pastors in their offices after I would bring a message to their white church because they supported me through the navigators. They would, as a member of the navigators, I had to raise my support. So I had to go around and ask churches or ask individuals that if they liked my mission, my work of being a missionary, not overseas, but in the inner city of Chicago, they would then send me monthly support every 6 months. And that's what I would pay my bills on. So the navigators was somebody that their name allowed me to go to places or churches that they didn't know Dana, but they knew the navigators and they had a good reputation. So they would say, yeah, we're looking at supporting a ministry that works here or works there. So when I would go to these churches, and they were paying me, each month to do some of the work, I would bring a message. But when we would get to talk about the racism and just the things that I saw and how I'm trying to get the church to see this, and I don't understand why there's so much hate, because that's when I really, about probably close to 5-6 years in there, I started to then really question God. Where does this hate come from? If we can get to the root of it, we could kill it. So, in experiencing and seeing firsthand all the systematic racism, it started to stir up another level of questioning in my soul. But where does it come from?
Right there, we're gonna take a short break.
Okay.
'Cause boy, oh boy, hey, it's cooking right now. It's really cooking. Really quick, I just want to address the chat. For those that you guys have been making comments that is not something that we normally rock with. But you've been here all these other times and enjoyed Bible study. I really would ask that you guys will look at yourselves on the inside and say, what is the real issue that you're having right now? Right now, you're receiving the absolute truth, and it's beautiful. So, for the one or maybe two individuals that's, for whatever reason, that spirit of anger is starting to raise up in you, take a chill pill because we're not going anywhere. Oh, my volume is low. Let me see. Brother Dana, this right there where you're at, that's where we're gonna pick up. All right. I'm gonna run a short little break for about 2 minutes, and while I grab these cups and get ready to show everybody these cups, because we're right here at we're getting ready to go into kind of like the second phase, right?
Yes.
Um, but man, just we are what you're bringing to the table tonight. Remember when we were talking earlier, just briefly on the phone, and we were both kind of saying how, man, like we don't really just have a game plan. We're just gonna let the Most High do what He do. It's flowing right now. Man, it's flowing right now. You are directly on point. Okay, now what we're getting ready to do right now is I'm just going to show everybody the cups that we're getting ready to raffle off. And I call it a raffle, but it's really a giveaway. We went over this for the month of September. The month of September, we did an event where it was the month of giving. And it was all based on the kingdom principle that when you give, it will be given to you. So tonight, we're coming to you guys and we're going to give something out to everybody or to one person. We have several different wheels set up here. Unfortunately, I'm not using a system that can show you the wheels right now. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to do the moderator giveaway. And so for all the moderators, we have your name sitting on a spin wheel right here, and we're getting ready to go ahead and click, and it's gonna pick who is gonna win these his and her cups. And for all of those that haven't seen them yet, these are the front, even though it may be backwards, and these are the back. There's a Faith and Obedience cup. One says faith, one says obedience, but they're mugs, man. And I don't know about you guys, but I like drinking tea, trying to get away from drinking coffee. But this is something that we've never done before. And just as a celebration for Brother Dana coming in and trying to drive viewership for him and for his mission and everything that the Most High has him on, that's why we're doing this. So for those that's going to be interested at a later date to be able to grab. So right now they're just kind of like a what do you call it? A special item. All right. So just as a thank you to the moderators, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna click, and we're gonna see who's gonna end up winning these cups. And the person's name that it falls on is going to have to email us at foinfo2025@gmail.com. And the winner is, praise him, one of our moderators that have been with us for a while. Praise him. You just won you some his and hers Faith and Obedience cups. So congratulations to you. All right. We wanted to just take that moment really quick and give everybody just a short break. Wow. Nice. Nice. We still have three different types of shirts that we're going to be giving away tonight. So it's not over. But man, thank you for all of the moderators and everything that you guys have been doing. We wouldn't be able to operate the way that we operating without you guys. You guys really bring something that's special and that's solid. All right. The next raffle that we're going to do will be in just a little bit here, but it will actually be one for all of our subscribers. So the chat is subscriber only. By you being in the chat, you're already eligible. That's what we'll be rocking with next time, or on our next giveaway. All right, brother Dana. So I'm sorry to for us to have this little break, but um, man, let's dive back into it, man. We're sitting here and we're ready.
I thank you. And I want to say this. I'm not offended or I'm not upset or anything when some of my Black family members become angry because I have to put myself in their shoes. I was walking the Beltline here in Atlanta, and some of our Hebrew brothers out in the various camps, they know me. And most of them that know me and stuff, if they see me, they'll give me respect. They'll either say, "Hey, brother, we see you." And I remember this past summer, I was going past one of then there was probably about 30 of the guys out there, and one of the guys was given the message, and talking about why they're the true Hebrews. And as I came by, he said, "This brother knows we're the true Hebrews." And so, of course, I got on the mic briefly and I said, "Yes, you are the true. And this is what, was spoken." And he went to shake my hand and I shook his hand. And then I went to shake the brother's hand that was next to him and he pulled his hand away from me. And the leader scolded him. And I said, "Please don't do that." And I'm not speaking to you, brother, about this. I'm just giving this scenario. But I stopped him and I said, "I don't know what this brother has gone through and had to deal with because of my people. So out of respect and grace, I want you, because I need to give this brother the right to say, I don't want to shake your hand." A couple of times later, as I walked by, at one point, that brother put his hand out when I was going by and gave me a little handshake. So I only say that because I understand that there's going to be some anger and maybe some resentment or just different feelings that may not be positive towards me. Sometimes I was at a gathering and Brother Rick here in Atlanta asked me to come and share. And what I try to do is I always try to listen to the language of my brothers and sisters. Do they call each other Black? Do they call each other African American? How are they referring to one another, so that I can, the best of my ability, try to honor and respect the language or the descriptions and stuff. And so Brother Rick would always say, "Hey, my Black brother," and "Hey, my brother." And so when I got up there, I used the word Black, and a lady got very irate at the end. And that was another situation where I understood where she was coming from, but I tried to explain to her that I use the language and the terms that I hear being spoken. And so I just share that to you, that if any of the family members that saying Black or saying ghetto kind of becomes offensive, I apologize for that. But I always try to do the best that I can do to term and make my language that is acceptable as much as I can to those that are listening. Um, but with that, I ended where, as I saw all of this happening, I saw the police officers out on the street put drugs on these brothers. Unfortunately, some of the young men led me to the correctional system. So for 18 years, I dedicated sometimes 3 days, three 2-hour to 3-hour shifts where I went into Cook County Jail, Division 10, maximum security. The superintendent, a young man that as walked, this is going back, but as I used to walk around and pray, um, one day a young man, a brother, was following me, and then he came up to me and he's like, "Hey, I've seen you here," but he stirred up a conversation. And so we walked together as I was going to my apartment place. And just before we got there, we stopped in this parking lot and we eventually stood there for 5 hours. And Ronnie shared his experience growing up, all the stuff he had gone through. He would break down and cry. He shared that he had a girlfriend, that they had 5 children. But a few months ago, their only son, Ronnie Jr., died in Ronnie's care, died of SIDS. And so he was holding all of that shame and stuff. And he says, I've been doing drugs. I kind of sell drugs, but I'm trying to do what's right. So for the next 2 years, I would see Ronnie on the street, and he'd be like, "Hey, Pastor," he came to the church a couple of times. But eventually, what I found out is that he actually raped and murdered 3 women. And he got arrested. And when he was arrested, they also arrested his good friend that happened to be with him that afternoon on a school day. Ronnie was going to pick up his daughter from school and said, "Hey, Mike, I'll pick you up from work." But what happened the night before is that Ronnie's photo for using the ATM machine went on TV, and his daughter saw that, went to school, told the teacher. So when Ronnie came to pick up his daughter, the cops were waiting for him because his daughter, unknowingly to her, gave him away. Mike was there, and because of the injustice of the cops, they arrested them both, and they kept them locked up for 36 hours where they tortured them. I finally saw Ronnie's name, and so I ran down to Cook County Jail. I had never been there at this point, but I was determined to see Ronnie. And so I found my way. There's like 17, 18 divisions. There's like 25,000 men locked up at Cook County Jail. This ain't the prison system. This is just the jail in Chicago. Found my way to him. I waited almost 12 hours that day. I was on the wrong day because there's certain visiting days, all of that. But I said all of that because as I was sitting there, a white shirt, which I later learned is a superintendent of that division, she was a sister, and she was walking out, and she stopped and she looked at me and she said, "Young man, you've been here all day long." She said, "Who are you waiting for?" And I said, "Well, I'm waiting for this Ronald Hinton." And she said, "Man, today's visiting for the women," because this was Cermak. This is where they put those who were considered sick, not so much mentally, but maybe some type of physical ailment. They put Ronnie there because they said he tried to commit suicide, but actually the officers were strangling him. So anyway, she said, "Look, I'm going to make sure you see this young man." And so I sat down with this young man after he came back from arraignment. And in this room, face to face with Ronnie, who is now locked up, he confessed to me that he raped and murdered these women. He then said, "Pastor, will you go visit Michael Sanders?" I said, "Michael Sanders?" He said, "That's my best friend that also got roped up with this. He did not do anything. Tell him that I'm going to do what I need to do to get him out." I then, the next week, found the visiting day and went over to Division 10 Maximum Security to visit Michael Sanders. And I'll never forget the first time I walked in and the glass was between us and it's all steel, round little bench stools. He looked at me and he's like, "Who the F are you?" And I said, "Well, your friend Ronnie, who I know, asked me to come over here and tell you that, he's going to get you out of this situation." Making a long story short, that's where I started to visit Mike every single week. As I walked those streets, I got tumors in my feet. I had 7 foot surgeries within a year and a half to remove all these tumors that would develop this foot, this foot. And even though I was having all those surgeries, I was still going up to visit Mike. And one day, the superintendent of that division, Superintendent Collier, a short brother, he called me into his office and I was petrified. I'm like, "Oh no, what did I do wrong?" And he said, "I need a man like you to come in here that has a pure heart and is sincere about my men to help them." And anyway, he opened up the door for me. I had full reign of Division 10, floor 2B. I walked behind there like I was an officer. And so for many Thanksgivings at the time, I was celebrating Thanksgiving and Christmas and Easter. I did not go home. I went to the jail. And I would sit and have Easter dinner, Christmas dinner, Thanksgiving dinner, because Superintendent Collier would allow me to buy Popeyes or Church's Chicken or KFC, whatever the guys wanted, to bring in an outside meal for them to have. And so there was 75 guys on my floor. And so for about 18 years, we developed the Life Learning Dorm program where others helped to volunteer. But we would work with these 75 guys for 5 months. And we literally were able to bring in computers. We did, different like anger management classes, anything to help these guys be restored. But it was Christian based at the time. And so I spent those 18 years, but when I would go in there and sit with those guys, I learned more and they taught me more than I ever taught them. And they became my family. To this day, Michael Sanders is my best friend. He's still locked up because of the injustice. Michael Sanders had, of course, there was no evidence against him because he wasn't present, but they forced him and tortured him into a statement. And so to this day, I'm still fighting to get him out. Before I left Chicago 4 years ago, we went before the governor of Illinois to plead for Mike's case. The Innocence Project and the Illinois Torture Committee, they all have taken Mike's case because of us reaching out to them and pleading with them. So we're hoping that maybe this year we'll get a breakthrough for Mike to get out or to at least get a second trial. But he was given life plus 65 years. And this March will make 27 years that Mike has been locked up in the correctional system. I went to the Lord really spoke to me and said to go. I had to walk away from Ronnie. He was crazy. When he was crazy. But I believe that Ronnie was really a conduit for me to get to Mike. But I went to one of Ronnie's trials, and there was 3 white guys that got up, and they all testified that they were walking on Morse Avenue, and this young man came up and began to talk to them, and they, in conversation, these guys were saying they were walking towards their apartment, but all 3 of them had a different story than mine. Because when they had reached the apartment, Ronnie shot a couple of them and pistol whipped the 3rd one and robbed them. And I share that story only that the hand of God was always on my life. I also share that after 7-foot surgeries, I was scheduled to have surgery 8 and 9. I was invited to go to Nigeria for the first time. And so I went to Nigeria. I believe this was like in 2000 and maybe 2004. And I went with Bishop Ray Lorena, who was a prominent pastor, bishop of Faith Tabernacle Church in Chicago. And we landed in Lagos. We spent several days in Lagos, and then we drove by armored car and all of that to Benin City. Benin City was the place of Papa Idahosa. And he became a prominent pastor where his church in Benin City was like 30,000, 20,000 members. And so he had just died, and Mama Idahosa was then hosting their yearly revival. And so the bishop that asked me to go with him from Chicago was speaking one of those nights. So every night of the revival, which I think it was like 3 nights, I sat on the stage with Bishop Ray Lorena. And it was the final night. And I remember getting over to Bishop's to then get in the car that chauffeured us everywhere. And he said, Brother Dana, what's wrong? And I said, look, on my way here, I said, God, I hear that you do miracles in Africa. And I can't have any more of these foot surgeries. They were tumors and they were like stones. It was keeping me from walking the streets. And I said, I can't go through 2 more. That'd be almost 2 years of being on crutches or a cast constantly. And I said, I'm getting wore out. And I asked God to heal me. And I said, our trip is almost half over because after Benin City, we were going to Port Harcourt and then we were flying back. So it was, about 2 weeks, 13 days. And he said, don't give up on God because we're not home yet. And so that evening, just like the 2 evenings before, we got up, we're sitting on the stage. And that night, they said there was about 30,000 Nigerians. And I'm saying as far as your eye could see, it was really incredible. People showing up to learn about God. It was incredible. The worship leader got up. Now, I had never met this guy and never talked to him. Yes, I saw his face because he led worship the 2 nights before. And he got up there to start, and all of a sudden he got frustrated and he goes in his Nigerian accent, God, I hear you. And he turned around and he looked at me. And as he pointed and said, you, I felt this burning sensation like I was on fire from the bottom of my feet. I stood up and that burning sensation, I felt it go through my legs and completely go out of me. And then what they called slain in the spirit, nobody touched me, nobody did anything. All I know is about 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later, I awoken and got myself up. I had an African garment on, so I kind of, situated everything and went back and sat at the chair next to my bishop. And he looked at me with tears in his eyes and he said, I told you, brother, we weren't home yet. I had never had a tumor since that moment. When I walked off that stage down those steps, I had no pain. They were gone. When I got home, Dr. Michael J. Fox was his name. I got to know him. I mean, they almost invited me for Thanksgiving because I was a regular patient after almost 2 years. I went there and because I was going to be scheduled for the surgeries. And I said, Doc, they're gone. And he was like, you're quacko. Because these tumors were hard tumors. They weren't a soft tumor that sometimes can just break or I don't know what, just kind of dissipate. He said there's only 2 ways that those tumors can be removed: by the hand of a doctor or a miracle. He did x-rays, and I remember him. He was very tall. I remember him coming into the office, and he had tears streaming down his face. And I remember him looking at me and saying, Dana, there is a God. Because he said there's only 2 ways: either the hand of me or the hand of a God. And so that's a little bit of my testimony there. But I go back to the jail. I go back to all the stuff that I saw on the streets. And that's when I really started to question, where does this come from, God? You got to show me. Because if you can show me, I can help put an end to it. And so this is 2014 now. And I believe it was August. But I had gone, because Ronnie confessed the murders to me, I have been able to be a mouthpiece to help Mike get out of prison because the murderer admitted it to me. However, I went and for almost 3 hours, I testified. The state was beating me up like I was some nasty man. But I continued to say Mike was innocent. This is what Ronnie said. They tortured him. That's why that string across his neck. They used his shoelace. Mike had a busted lip. They hit him in the groin. They did this. They did that. And after all of that, I remember Judge Flood saying, I'm not giving him a retrial. It was also that month, maybe it was the day before or all that, that our brother, that they snuffed out Eric Turner. Not Eric Turner, Eric, the brother that they snuffed out his breath, Eric Gardner. They had just killed him. And I remember walking in the back door of my house. on the west side of Chicago. I lived those 30 years pretty much in the same community where I was beat up. I lived there. I was in Rogers Park those first 8 years. And then pretty much the rest of those 22 years, I lived on the notorious west side, pretty much where I got beat up. And I remember walking into the house and I was just like, okay, God, enough is enough. And then I thought about you judge a tree by its fruit. I said, wait a minute, God, I'm going to use your same word to judge your fruit. I go into these churches, these white churches, and I see more racism and hate towards my black brothers and sisters in the church than I do in the secular world. So if I take your same scripture and I apply it to you by judging you, the tree, by your fruit, it means that you are a racist God. And Christianity is a religion to support your racist self. And I remember looking up to God and I remember saying, and again, I ask you for forgiveness, but I just really want to be that. I looked at him and I said, fuck you and your religion. You took me on this journey to only find out that you are the effing God that is behind racism. I said, F you. And I threw the Bible and I sat on my bed. It was, I can't even tell you how many moments or was, but as I said that, I then heard this voice say, no, son, they're my precious chosen children. And then he said, Deuteronomy chapter 28. I went up and I got the Bible from the floor, looked at Deuteronomy chapter 28, started reading it, and I'm like, okay, I don't know what voice or whose voice I'm listening to, but what does this mean? But when I reached the second part where it said curses for disobedience, as I read those scriptures, those first 10 years from 1994 to 2014, Deuteronomy chapter 28 began to line up with all that I had experienced during those years of living on the west side and on the north side, working with my brothers and sisters. All of those scriptures began to trigger. And then I remember getting to, I will bring them back into Egypt again, but this time by the way of ship. And I began to weep because that's when I realized the root of all the hate and racism against who I thought were my black brothers and sisters, but actually now I know are the true Hebrews. And so from 2014, I've been on this journey of learning. I've been on a journey now to proclaim this truth, because when we know this truth, I believe it sets you as my black family free from knowing where it's coming from and why. It gives you your true identity. I mean, that to me, that is a beautiful thing. Um, to know that your identity isn't some untamed animal, as my forefathers explain you to be, as the Willie Lynch letters say, untamed wild horses that are of no value unless they're whitely domesticated. But now we see the truth of why you are so hated. It's because you are the precious children of the Most High Yah God. And so that's how I got to be where I am. And that's why I add to my fight to not only fight against racism while we're still in this battle, but to also proclaim the truth of where that racism comes from. And it's been an incredible journey. um, like I said at the beginning, when I said, God, take me on this journey, He literally took me for what I said, but I would never want it any differently. And I count it as nothing but a privilege and an honor, a privilege that God, the Most High Yah, would speak to me, a white Gentile, and then give me the honor to be a mouthpiece to speak this truth. You know, my family, my dad died of COVID 4 years ago,
Oh
and he
man.
was young and healthy. And just like that, it took him out. So I went home to do his funeral. And several of my blood family members got up and walked out. I didn't think much of it until I read some of my messages on Facebook. You're a disgrace to our family. Go back to your black people. You're a disgrace to your father's name. And now, if you follow me on YouTube, you'll see one of my followers negatively speak about me all the time. And that is my baby brother. So I have not been home for over 4 years now. I have no intentions of going home. My mother is in this truth. My mother went with me in April of 2022. I went over to Ghana, West Africa, and I spent almost 2 weeks there. And I took a journey into the truth of the Atlantic slave trade from the Africa side. So I went to the river where your ancestors took their last bath, Asin Manso. I then went to one of the castles where I saw your ancestors locked up and the torturing that they went through even before they got on the ships. And then I went to Jamestown because in Jamestown, they declare to be the true Hebrews of the Bible. And so I spent a day in Jamestown and with the brothers and sisters there. And so through that journey, not only was my mom's eyes completely open, but she has an empathy that is so beautiful, to see because even my youngest brother, who's been to Chicago, who played basketball with the guys I was mentoring with and hung out with them, his true racist heart, has just really come to the surface over these last couple of weeks because of the videos that I put out. So, I strongly know that all of us white folk are racist to a degree because when you swim in salt water, you don't know how salty that water is until you get a taste of fresh water. And so, for any of my white family members to say I'm not racist, number one, you are. I hope that I'm not racist, and I hope that my ignorance through these years is declining more and more. But I'll never reach a point, I believe, where I don't have something that still needs to be expelled from me. Even if it's when I got here to Atlanta and I saw quite a few white homeless people. That went through my mind like, what? Because I'm ingrained to see a black individual homeless, but kind of like, what's up with that? Because it's so ingrained in us. And that's why, every day I'm always open that God will take me, the Most High will take me deeper and deeper if there's anything still in me that's offensive. Um, and so, I'll never say I've arrived. I sure hope I'm arriving, but I'm still here to learn.
Man, that's one heck of a testimony. And just as you were sitting back and you were talking and as you were laying it out, several things really pointed out in my mind. One of the things was is one of the last things you talked about is that 2014, 2015, that seems to be the time of a mass awakening
Mhm.
where it's like all over. It's like we just start waking up and being like, hold on, man. Like, wait. I remember as a kid, as we would read through the Bible, that there would be times where they would name off all the names of the different groups of people. And me being a kid, I would sit there and I'd be like, hey man, where the black people at? Because I would always wonder, dang, they got all these different nations, but they don't even name us. And then they would just go over my head and I would just continue to go through life. But to see that it was like this mass awakening all around the world, 2014, 2015, some already knew from before that, some still it was being passed down, but it's we give all glory to the Most High. Everybody's journey is their journey, and
Yeah.
that's the
Yep.
beautiful part about it, is that it's not the way that you start, it's the way that you finish. But that in between part, oh man, when you tell the Most High that you're willing to do something, he take it serious.
Yeah, he
And
do.
so,
He do.
right? He takes it serious, and he takes it so much further than anything we could have imagined. And just to sit back and hear, I'm so thankful. Like to be honest with you, even though we may be at the halfway point, I'm sitting here and I'm looking and I'm saying, as you were talking, I was sitting there and I was saying, Lord, you got to be kidding me. Like this would have never crossed my mind in a million years. And I'm sitting here and I'm saying, and I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you, and I'm like, this man that's talking, like he's called, and then to bring him here, like what could we bring for you? And I'm sitting there, I'm just like, and then as I'm listening, I'm sitting there, I'm remembering, and I'm saying, his plans are always right.
Mhm.
His plans are always right. Like I was impressed from your 25-minute video. But then to sit back here and listen, I remember we just got done reading in about about Solomon. And as we were reading about Solomon, the Queen of Sheba made a comment that blessed are those that sit in your presence and hear you. And I'm sitting here and I'm saying, for everybody that's in the chat, for all of our moderators, as they're sitting here and they're listening, and I'm sitting here and I'm saying, you are just dropping a wealth of understanding and knowledge on us, Lord. Like what you're giving to us right now, we're supposed to be here right now.
Mhm.
Like you're when I saw your video saying how you were doing some fundraising to get out there on main media in Good Morning America and all these things that you was ready to drop, you was ready to give them to put the word out. And as I was sitting there and I was listening to you, I was sitting there and I was saying, let's go. Like I let's go. When you said that many times in your life, you just always realize that his hand was always on you.
Yeah.
And when a person comes to that realization, a lot of times we can exalt ourselves to kind of be like, okay, God, what do you want us? What do you want me to do? But this is one of them situations where, and I hope that you understand me. I'm sitting here and I'm saying, we are in the position that we are in, so that you can come here to do your thing.
Mhm.
Because everybody that hears you needs to hear you. Because the mission that you've been given is one that must be done, and
Mhm.
it was given to the one who can do it. So it
Mhm.
doesn't matter what the situation is or how things go. Just keep going.
Mhm.
We just got done reading about Elijah, how Elijah had hit his point to where he couldn't take anymore. But the difference that I heard from you is that you didn't get to the point to where you couldn't take anymore. You got to the point to where you got frustrated.
Yes.
And that's different than what Elijah felt. Elijah got to the point to where he was like, man, Jezebel coming to kill me. Right? Like I want to die. That was the point
Mm.
that he was in his walk. But I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you and I'm saying, oh no, you were ready for the truth.
Yep.
And when you got to the point to where you was ready for the truth, he gave it to you.
Yep.
And just seeing that, that's so much of a blessing. I'm not sure if everybody that's sitting in the chat really understands what we just heard. Like we just heard gold. Like you don't you don't hear that. To say that I'm inspired is beyond the word that I'm looking for. Just it's like when we was talking earlier, and I know I already said this, and we were sitting there and we were saying, I don't know how it's gonna go. Just whatever the Most High has to happen, that's how it's gonna go, and it's flowing right now. It's flowing right now, most definitely. All right. So the next section, we're not going to get there just yet. The next section that we go into is Brother Dana is an author as well, and so we're going to get into some of the books that Brother Dana has written and get you guys some links and some now that you have background of the man and the journey that he has went through. Um, I know I'm going to talk to the moderators about this probably in one of our moderator meetings, but now do you guys understand why we're doing what we're doing right now? Do you guys see the value in what we're doing right now? And so when we get to the point to where we start talking about the books for Brother Dana, I'm personally asking you, and you know I don't ask you for much, but I'm personally asking that you would at the very least go and check it out. Share it on your social media. Even think about putting it on your wish list, or can they get it down on their Kindle?
Yeah, yeah, yep.
Boom, get it on your Kindle. Just whatever way that you can support. Now you can sit here and you can hear the journey and listening and hearing the journey. Support, right? Support. At this point, send me one of the little ones. At this point, you know, we're gonna support you guys because you guys, the viewers, man, you guys have been supporting from day one. I personally remember about a month ago, we were averaging about 100 subscribers per night, and things were growing so fast that I got worried because I was sitting there and I was saying, I remember Pastor Darby saying that, you know, Satan will make you famous, but the Most High will make you infamous. And I was saying, I was like, man, these numbers are moving too fast. I'm not here to be out on the front of everybody. I'm here to do exactly what the Most High wants me to do. Go ahead, pick one of the shirts, son. That one? That one going first? All right. Thank you, sir. So we're getting ready to give away one of our Faith and Obedience shirts designed by Miss Kindness. Okay. But this is the shirt, guys. Everything is going to be 2X, or excuse me, XL. For the young ladies that, you know, maybe an XL is too big, I'm pretty sure you can figure out something to do with it. And for the gentlemen, hey, man, rock it. All right. So we're going to go to, we've already did one of the, thank you. Thank you, sir. We've already done one. And um, the last two will be the ones that we will do for the viewers. This one right here that we're getting ready to do right now is going to be for our members. We have some members that have joined over the last couple of months, and a membership was something that I was really kind of skittish about going about because I have this real thing about whenever the Most High provides the vision, He provides the provision. So I'm a firm believer in I don't need to go out and ask; He'll bring it in. And because of that, when we set up the thing for the members, it was something I really wasn't sure with. But once we set it up, it was just start rolling. So for our members, we're getting ready to do a raffle for all of you guys. Now, just like when we told praise him when he won for the moderators when we do this raffle and it rolls to you, you're going to have to send us all of your information to the email at foinfo@gmail.com, confirming your name on YouTube. And trust me, we have a way to go in and look into it just in case anybody still got a heart where they're trying to snatch something. All right. uh, um, but you're going to have to give us your address, all that good stuff. And if you're not in the US, give us your country code as well. All right. So we're going to go ahead and we are going to do a raffle for the members. Let's see who's going to pick up the fresh the Faith and Obedience shirt, the white version of the one I have. All right, it's going to be D Herb 916. I'm gonna put it in the chat right now. It is DEEURB 916. Congratulations on winning your Faith and Obedience shirt. Wow, I just dropped your well, we'll drop your name right here in the chat. Give me 1 second. What was that? D-Rub? D-Herb 916. Congratulations. And we will, since you are a member, we have a lot of your information already. Those that want to check out the membership, somebody came in the other day and gave away 5 memberships. I didn't even know that was possible, but That's another thing that you guys will be able to do. Okay, as we get set up here, we're gonna take 1 second. We're gonna run an ad. Ads help us pay the bills instead of having you guys give. So just have mercy with the ad. But as we just get set up for the next segment, what we are gonna do is we're gonna go over and we're going to look at the section 2, talking about the living with purpose, right? But we're kind of focused because I think that you kind of went through everything
Yeah.
with the background. You did an excellent job. So we're going to kind of the purpose with promotion and engagement, as far as talking about your books and sharing the links. That's what we're going to get into right now, and then from there we will flow through there, and then we'll get over to where we'll get into the question and answer section, because some people have some questions for you, and we
Mhm.
want to kind of open it up. For all the viewers, any questions that you guys have, please go ahead and submit your questions, um, because at the end of the day, you know, we're ready to get it rolling. But we are here with Brother Dana, coming out of the city of Atlanta,
Yes.
in one love. I love that, brother. I love that. All right, all right. Everybody should be back. Okay, so Brother Dana, is there out of the books that you have written? First of all, what inspired you to write the books?
The first book is Welcome to Racism. And that book, family, really isn't going to say anything to you that you don't already know. It's taken those experiences that I had, over all these years, but specifically over those first, kind of 25, 28 years while I was in Chicago, and taking those experiences that has changed me, has caused me to recognize and wrestle with my own white privilege, white supremacy, racism, systematic racism, prejudice. And I put some of those lessons in that book to hopefully open up the eyes of some of my white family members that might have a heart willing to change because they're reading my firsthand experience. So, one of the chapters in there is called My White Privilege Nearly Killed Me.
Mm,
I had shared with you that, and I'm not to ruin it, but just to give you an example, I shared with you that while I was at Moody, we were a few blocks, 8, 9 blocks, I would say, to Magnificent Mile, where some of the most wealthiest people in Chicago lived, to then going, 3 blocks the other direction, and you're in the heart of Cabrini Green. So once I had dedicated my life, and wanting to go and learn what the Father wanted me to learn, Moody had a big brother, big sister program where the Moody students would go and adopt a young person over at Cabrini Green and kind of be a mentor to them, much like Big Brother, Big Sister. That's out there, like, I think some agency out there, has those different programs. And so I signed up for it, and I worked with a young man by the name of Reginald, and he lived on like the eighth, ninth floor of one of the high rises. And there's like 4 high rises with a great big parking lot in the middle. And then you had some townhomes over there, and then you had the yellow high rises a little bit this way. But Good Times was filmed out of the high rises that were the red brick. And so that's exactly one of the buildings that Reginald lived in. And during the spring, when kind of in probably end of May, June-ish, or kind of April, depending on if Chicago warmed up quicker or not, at that time, there would be like the gang shootouts, where each of those buildings were controlled by a various gang. And so in the spring and sometimes in the fall, there would be those gang wars for territory. And when that would happen, Chicago police would notify Moody to tell the students, for this next period of time until they give the kind of the thumbs up, stay out of Cabrini Green because of the excess violence. And so at one point they said, hey, kind of it's okay to go back in. Well, when I went back in this time, I mean, it was ironic that Reginald their family had gotten a phone, and so he had called me, not a cell phone, but a regular landline. He had called me and he said, Dane, I haven't seen you for a while. He said, can you come over and get me? And I said, sure. And he gave me his phone number and I just jotted it down on a notepad on my desk. And I left my dorm room and I went over there. And you have to walk up several steps. And then there's kind of a big cement kind of patio thing. And then you got the doors that lead into the building. All the doors were bulletproof, heavy metal. And in the middle of like 4 doors on this side and 4 doors on this side was a booth where the security guards stayed, all bulletproof glass around him or her that was in there. But they didn't do nothing. The gangs controlled everything of the building. And so I was going over there to get my little brother. And as I'm walking up the steps, I kind of heard these guys, which they were what they called the lookouts. They were the guys that were on the front, to kind of, look at who's coming and going inside the building and all of that. And I heard, them say, man, who are you? And I continued to walk. And then I heard them say, man, who are you? And I stopped and I kind of looked at them, but in a rushing way. I said, "Look, I'm from Moody. I'm going to get the Reginald, one of the kids I'm mentoring." But I kept on walking, and when I stepped into the door, I didn't get very far until several gentlemen surrounded me with a gun at my head, and they were like, "Who the do you really think you are? If you don't tell us what you're doing, we'll blank shoot you right now." And it was at that moment that I was like, okay, I need to pretty much be respectful. And so I shared with them and they said, you better call him. And if he don't come down. So God literally gave me the remembrance of that phone number and Reginald came down. We walked out. But that whole time I was with Reginald, I could not get past what I had just done. See, as a white person, we don't have to think about where we're going unless where we're going is someplace bad or dangerous. Then we'll decide whether or not we should go. And so here I was with all whatever good intentions I had. I was absolutely disrespectful to the residents of that community, of that building, because I was walking on their territory in my white privilege, kind of shoving them off like, look, I'm here to get my little brother. I'm from Moody. Very disrespectful because I never stopped to address them, never stopped to give them the due respect that I was a stranger walking into their territory, their property, their backyard, their front yard. And because the guys that used to be the lookouts were no longer there because a different gang had controlled, they didn't know me. And so when I brought Reginald back and brought him up and came out, I went over to those guys and I apologized to them for my disrespectful behavior, that I didn't stop to address them and answer their question, but I walked into their front yard with really my white privilege. And it was at that moment that God began to really reveal to me my white privilege and where I need to be aware of it, where I need to put it away, but also if I can use it for good, hey, here I am. but to at least learn my white privilege. And so that's one of the examples I put in that book to hopefully help my white family understand we walk in privilege wherever we go. And that is not offered to you because if one of you or with my white family, if a black brother or sister walked into their yard, you know what they would do. They wouldn't just question, they'd be calling the cops. And yet I walked into the front yard of these brothers' home and I gave them no respect that I am walking on their property because my white privilege naturally just taught me, you go where you want to go. You don't have to think about where you're going unless, like I said, it's someplace that you shouldn't go. So I share that story in there. I share the story of Mike and the torture he went through for 36 hours. Um, there's a really good story in there about a brother that kind of hit me in the back of the head with a glass bottle, and just through a couple of nights later, I run into him and how he apologized and how we kind of developed a small relationship, and where I was able to help him get into a carpentry trade. So it's just my raw story of the lessons that I learned about systematic racism, my own white privilege, and this destructiveness of white supremacy. My next book is called But Hebrew. So after, hearing the voice of the Most High, now I've got all that information, and, all of with Deuteronomy chapter 28. So when I got down here to Atlanta, um, it'll be 4 years, the end of this coming February of 26. I came down with all intention to work in the schools. The last 8 years while I was at Chicago, I was a restorative practices coach for Chicago public schools. I oversaw 17 of the worst hitting black and brown schools in the city. And my job was to go in there and help change the culture of the school, literally expose the racism of teachers and staff that were wrongfully expelling our black and brown students, which comes with what we call the pipeline to prison. They build prisons, to accommodate all of the black and brown students that we kick out of the education system purposefully. So I came down here to Atlanta hoping to be able to use what I did in Chicago down here. And I didn't get any job, didn't get any job. And so that following July of 2022, after being here the end of February, I went to interview to be at TJ Maxx. And I got there, and the manager said, "Hey, can you sit down here in the office? I got to do something. I'll be right back." And I said, "Sure." Well, she came walking back in, and I didn't notice anything, and she shut the door. She sat down, and she said, she looked at me, she said, "Mr. Stevens." Now, she was a sister, and she said, "I was so excited when you applied for this job." She says, "You got a master's in clinical mental health counseling." She says, "I see that you love God." She says, "I see that you volunteered." I also volunteered at the Juvenile Detention Center for 13 years, where I went in and worked with the juveniles. And then I was one of their victim impact panel, where I would go and speak to the young people that were either in Cook or in the juvenile detention center, were either on probation or parole. And I would speak and work with them in hopes to be able to encourage them. But I did that for 13 years, and I would see and talk to about 7,000 young people a year. So she saw all of that. She said, "I just took this store over, and the management were really abusive. So I need somebody to come in to look at my staff as people and not as your staff, your slaves." She said, "But to love them and to bring healing." But she said, "I don't know if you noticed that when I walked in the office here to start the interview," she said, "I stopped." I said, "No, I didn't pay attention." But she said, "I heard the voice of God." And she said, "This is what he told me. He didn't bring you down here to work a 9 to 5 job, but he's got some tasks for you to complete so you can do what he's called you down here to do. He said, if I hire you, things won't go good with my store." So she said, "Mr. Stevens, or shall I say Brother Stevens, I can't hire you because God has something for you to do, and it's not working a 9 to 5 job." I knew what she was talking about at that point. It was my book, Welcome to Racism, because I started on that years ago and had a couple chapters kind of written out, had my table of contents kind of written out, but I hadn't gone further because I'm not a writer. I don't even like reading books. And I'm like, okay, God, really? You want me to write a book? Oh, yeah, right. But she made it very clear. And so when I left that interview, I knew what I had to do. So that's when I came back in the next few months and I wrote that first book, Welcome to Racism. When I had completed that book, I heard the Most High say, there's another book for you to write. Just like that, one of my sisters, she's a follower, but she's a dear sister of mine, Sister Camelia. She called me and she said, Beloved. She calls me beloved. And she said, Beloved, she said, the Most High just spoke to me and said, you have another book to write. And as she spoke that, the title dropped into my spirit, But Hebrew. So the second book is entitled Not Black, Not African American, Not Colored, Not Negro, but Hebrew. And it's based off of that Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse. You're going to have to help me out with that. But where that verse says that you will be known by a byword.
Mm.
And that's when I took the next few months and I sat down and I completed my second book called But Hebrew. That book is for everybody, but it's to solidify through the voice and through scripture. See, when I was in Christianity and I was at Moody Bible Institute, they said that if God speaks to you, there should always be a Bible verse or biblical backing. And so this voice with the biblical backing falls exactly. So no Christian individual can look at me and say, "Oh, you heard the voice, but where's your script, your spiritual scripture backing?" I have all of that. And so that book is taking Deuteronomy chapter 28 and matching it with what I went through and experienced in the physical realm through all of the stuff that you go through as my Black family in this country from the beginning till now, matching and putting that together. I also go into talk about Jewish. How can this be the chosen people when the J wasn't even invented, and their own language tells on them because they're Jewish. That man acts girlish. He's not a girl, he just got characteristics of a girl. So you're not the true Jews. You just got characteristics of them. That's why you're ish. And you speak Yiddish. It's not the true language. It's got maybe characteristics or elements of the language, but it's not the true language. I also break down just in the physical realm. How did my white family be slaves in the Egyptian sun for 12, 13, 15 hours a day without burning up? I'm a white man. And if I go out in that sun without the protection, I'm going to be a red, blistered, hurting, bleeding man.
Mm.
Is that why Israel is one of the top two nations in the world that deals with skin cancer? Because you're living in a place you were never intended to live? The other place is Australia. The other place is South Africa. All places where white Gentiles have taken over, but they were never intended to be there. So that's what the book But Hebrew is about. I try to make it very elementary, very simple, connecting the dots to present a case to prove, to confirm that you are the true chosen. So those are the two books that really are fighting this fight with racism and declaring the truth of you as the true Hebrews.
Man, outstanding, absolutely outstanding. We've I'm it's just on my spirit, but we've lost three or four really, really solid moderators that when they came and they heard the word that they were all for it. But privately, one or two have come to me and said, "Hey, when it comes to you guys being the people, I just can't get down with that." And I would always be like, "Well, what does that have to do with the word, though? Like, that doesn't change the fact of salvation. It doesn't change the fact of what we're doing here. But that would be like a linchpin for them. So for you to provide something that can give them the understanding without them feeling like it's coming from a position of pride is excellent. It's like I was talking to my kids today and I was telling them the difference. We got them a little telescope and I was telling them that this is a tool, not a toy. And
Hmm.
the fact that what you're providing for people, it's a tool.
Right.
It's something that they need. but at the same time, it's something that when talked about from certain individuals, it can be seen as something so egregious. And so, I mean, everything that you're doing, keep going,
Thank
right?
you.
Right.
Thank you.
Everything that you're doing, keep going, because I've heard a lot of your suffering. And I remember Paul when he said that, the road to the kingdom is full of tribulation.
Mhm.
And you're walking down that kingdom road. So just keep going. It's just whatever it is, just keep going.
I've
All
I've
right.
come too far to go back, and
Yeah.
yeah, so anyway, those are the two books that I've written, to really declare this truth.
Now we can find these books on Amazon,
They're on
Kindle.
Amazon. Yep. They're Kindle. You can also, like, if you go to my website, you can also read about them a little bit more, and then there's a link there to Amazon. But you can go straight to Amazon if you put in "But Hebrew" or Dana Stevens or "Welcome to Racism." It'll bring you, to the books. I call it the whole picture. Um, "Welcome to Racism" and "But Hebrew" together, they're the whole picture to
Okay.
paint the physical and then the physical side of systematic racism and all of that, the spiritual understanding of racism.
That's so wild because last night and the last 2 to 3 nights, part of the message that's been coming out of First Kings is getting a good understanding that things start in the spirit, but they always come over to the physical.
Yep.
That you need to have both sides. Is how the Most High will confirm things. Um, so yeah, for all the viewers, it's been being posted in the chat the whole time. The whole time we've been live is we've been giving you all the links. So make sure that you guys tap in and you use those links. And you don't just have to buy it for yourself, buy it for your office. Buy it for if you're in an office and let's say they celebrate Christmas and they do that thing where they exchange gifts, buy it, wrap it up, and give it to somebody. Like just get it out there, right? We're not getting it out there for anything negative at all. We're getting it out there for the end of the for at the end of the day, because it's just the season that we in. That all scripture is good for edifying of the body. So what Brother Dana has been doing is something that is really worth embracing. Um, is there anything else that you have for us before we get over into our question and answer section?
No. Who's been who has made now in this walk, uh has really been a mentor, is my mentor, that I have a direct connection to. He called me a couple times today. If you've heard of Damona, Israel, or if
Yeah.
you've heard of the original Black Jews that left and started Damona, the current prince, who is Prince Sar Amiel, that's my mentor. In about 2015, he saw one of my videos and he summoned me. He was in Chicago at the time, and I remember meeting him. And, he has been through so much in helping the his Hebrew family, not only in just Damona, but across the nation, because there's a lot of members of Damona that are living here in the States.
Mm.
And so he has been a real big impact for me, in just helping me even understand the Hebrew way. As someone who speaks fluent Hebrew, you know, he has helped me to learn. And he said, the word Hebrew in of itself is progression. That's why every all the other nations look to us, because we were the leading. We were leaders in technology. We were leaders in civilization. We were the builders of everything, because the Most High gave us the wisdom to be advanced. And so he's really helped me. And so when I look at today, him and others, he's one of my mentors that has challenged even some of my thinking, along this way on different stuff. So I'm just honored that the Most High would use this man also as a part of my learning, in this walk, in the journey that he has me on.
Nice. That's solid, man. Okay, so we have filtered some questions
Okay,
from the chat.
great.
Some of the questions um, in the very beginning are things that we may have skipped over us, just because at that point in time we were just really engrossed in the breakdown of the word or the breakdown of what was going on. But so one of the questions that we have, let me see, I think I have the names attached to it. We have a question from at Rulag. I got a question why that question we can throw to the side. That's okay. Another question is from Marilyn Mirsado. When did you figure out that it was your calling? Was it a feeling or a dream? Meaning, she's asking what happened that allowed you to know what exactly your calling was, right?
Yep. I really think to answer that, it started when I got beat up.
Okay.
I think that was the really the initial um situation. And when it comes to how did I know that, was it a feeling? It was the impact of those words to my soul could not allow me to rest until I understood to the best of my ability the pain behind those words. Welcome to racism, which
Mm,
corporately is the pain behind the racism and the oppression that my white family members have and still are placing on you as the true Hebrews. So that's really where my calling started. And then, like I said, once I started to see all the systematic racism and began to have a glimpse of the understanding behind the words and the pain, that's then caused my heart to start saying, okay, God, you brought me on this journey. You're starting to show me. I'm starting to learn. I'm starting to understand. I'm definitely seeing all this stuff. But now, where does it come from? So you can't show me something now that I can't do anything about or don't have at least wisdom to an answer to get rid of it because, everybody, we're going around, but nothing's changing. So where is it coming from? Where's the root of it? And that is what brought, him, the voice of the Most High, to share your true identity.
okay. We have a question from at G.B.2.G. How do you start to understand the difference between worldly wisdom and godly wisdom?
Wow. I think a lot of times it's the fruit. The fruit of that wisdom in what it causes us to do. The fruit of the spirit is gentleness, kindness, all of that. So I believe it's the fruit, you know of that wisdom in what it's producing. Prince told me that the true way of a Hebrew is all my, and I'm kind of putting this in my word, but pretty much anything and everything I do, every reaction or interaction that I have with a fellow human, at the end when we depart, everything I do or say should be there to uplift this or love this person or give value and respect to this person. And everything that that person does should do the return to me. He said we really live in what he calls the Greek mindset. And he said, what the Greek mindset has taught us, even through our education, is at some point when we're young, we need to just shut up and listen and do as we're told. But then when you get to college or adulthood, then we're taught that we should always make sure that we win a discussion, an argument, so that there's never a place of understanding. But now the Greek culture has taught us that my way is right, your way is wrong. And at the end of the day, we're not going to agree on anything and we're going to walk away as enemies. And then we produce behavior that brings harm to both sides. And so that's one thing is he says, Dana, you don't have to prove you're right. You just need to share what you've done and gone through. And if the other person, agrees, great. If they don't, then that's all right. It's not their time. It's not their, he said, but make sure that at the end of the day, so that doesn't mean that I don't call out my white family members with truth. But ultimately, when I share that, at one point I hated my white family. And my videos at the very beginning had really this hate spirit behind it. And then the Most High spoke to me and he said, look at my people. They are the brunt of all these years of racism and hatred from your people. And yet they're able and willing to forgive you. And yet you're going to continue to hate your own people, and you've never even experienced the hate and the oppression personally. And that humbled me, because I think, man, you you as my black family, Hebrew family, not only have embraced me or adopted me, but you've embraced me. That is a level of forgiveness that blows my mind. And knowing that you are the true Hebrews brings me all the way back when I said that when I went to the church that Sunday on the west side, that in that worship service, I walked away saying, man, they have a connection or something with God that I've never felt. That was just that much more assurance that you're the chosen people. I've never seen a group of people fight for a country that enslaves them. Wow. My white
It's
folk can't
wow.
do that. So when I saw the characteristics of forgiveness and faithfulness, loyalty, respect as a whole, that's why I also knew you had to be the chosen, because those are the very elements of God that cause you to stand out amongst all these other nations that were evil. So going back to that wisdom, I think anything wisdom that brings about good fruit, um, that's the wisdom from the Most High.
I'm gonna just add a little something to that. Um, when it comes to with when it comes to worldly wisdom versus the type of wisdom that the individual may be looking to tap into, we also see that in John chapter 14 verse 26. It lets us know that all everything that we're supposed to learn should come from the Holy Spirit, that he should be teaching us every single thing that we need to know, because through the Holy Spirit we get a pure word, a pure understanding. It's undefiled and it's untouched. So the worldly wisdom would always be something that was taught to you, are taught to us by man. But when we're looking at wisdom from the Most High, it would always come in a direct channel, meaning through somebody influenced by the Holy Spirit directly or poured directly in you, because he doesn't need to go through somebody else to reach you. The same way
Right.
that Brother Dana was talking about how the Most High spoke directly to him. When we've shared with you many times that he has the capability to talk directly to you. Every night when we end Bible study, I always tell everybody the same thing, that you don't need me. What you when you come and you receive, what you really receive, and just like Paul was breaking it down, that when a person truly receives the word, they're not receiving the word from that man, but it's the Holy Spirit speaking out of the mouth of that man. And so when you want to separate worldly wisdom from wisdom that's coming from the Most High, take it to him, because he has the capability to talk to you. He cares about you. He literally knows you. And therefore, everything that you're seeking, you'll always receive it from him. And the way that he'll work, he'll show you the different ways that he works. Whether he brings you around others, or he has somebody walk into your path that then causes a trigger to go off in you for you to know, wait, this is for me. So that worldly versus direct wisdom, you're always gonna want to seek it, uh, as far as going through the Most High directly. Right?
Yep.
I did want to
Yep.
share that with everybody. Go ahead.
Yeah, and Prince mentioned this, and maybe this lines up with it. Worldly wisdom teach us things to believe, but in every belief, that little word lie is there. But Prince said to me that when you have an encounter with the Most High God, you leave knowing.
Yeah.
Knowing something trumps belief.
Yeah.
Because when you know something, You no longer just believe it. So when the Most High spoke to me, I don't care what anybody else ever thinks or believes. I know what the voice spoke to me. Now you have one or two choices. Either I heard the voice of Satan and I'm being misled, or I heard the voice of the Most High True God. That's it.
Mhm.
So if you want to say, well, Brother Dana, I think you heard the voice of Satan, I'm not going to argue that with you. You have the right to believe what you want, but I don't care because I
Yes.
know what I know. And when you know, I'm no longer, uh, um, in doubt because of what somebody else believes.
Once you hear them, it's different.
It's different. It's that
It's
mountaintop
different.
experience that when you meet the creator at the mountaintop, when you come down, it was maybe a bad journey, a hard journey getting up there. But when you get to that mountaintop and you hear his voice, Prince told me, when you come back, you're a new man or a new woman because what you once believed, now you know.
Yep. Oh yeah. All right, we got another question. And we're gonna be filtering through these questions as we read them. Okay, we've already read this one. I think you've already answered this question from Bamboozle. What kind of racism did you see? And I think you kind of let us know that you told us several situations, but you also were explaining how in the books it holds a lot of the different valuable information as far as with that as well. Would that be correct?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I saw, the physical police putting drugs on these guys. I saw at Cook County Jail, you know, they called the Orange Crush dudes. And they would come on the floor and they would have all the guys strip and they'd all to dehumanize them. They'd have these gentlemen then walk. Sometimes they had to go down stairwells to the gym where they would sit for sometimes 5, 6, 8 hours while these Orange Crush dudes dressed in orange would ransack their cells in search of drugs, but ransack it, destroy pictures, destroy the little property these guys had. Then they'd have them lined up to check if there was drugs in certain areas. And I saw this. I saw how it was just created to dehumanize these men because sometimes I got locked in there and I saw things I know they didn't want me to see. But I saw in the schools, you know, the difference between our inner city black and brown schools versus our white schools. I saw the difference in the curriculum. I saw that when I went into my black and brown schools, there was a computer lab for 400 to 500 students, or two computer labs for 400 to 500 students. You may think that's very good. But when I went into my white schools, every student was given an iPad or a notebook. So their ability by the time they left that middle school to be on social media or to learn, not social media, but to learn technology already trumped the black and brown schools because they went to the computer lab maybe once a week. But when you hold the computer in your hand, you're on it all the time. So
Yep.
I saw the racism and the disparities, in that arena.
Man, that's a breakdown. Um, Titan Man um has a feels that it's saying true Hebrews is not correct. It's also offensive to others. Also, I don't want to offend both several races. Abraham wasn't anything like that. He was from Assyrian, Babylonian, now Iraq, Levant. Uh, this is a comment by Titan Man. Would you like to address that, or if you would like, I could address that. It's totally up to you.
I guess I would only say is that I can only do the Father spoke to me and called you his precious chosen children. And that's I always referred to that. But in then my research or the people that the Most High has now brought around me throughout these last 11 years, has taught me that it's the Hebrews. So I'm at this place. I cannot sit here and say I know everything because I don't know where the revelation of the Most High Yah's word may continue to go. Because what I first learned, I'm learning more, and as I learn more, I'm learning more. Like I've begun to read the book of Enoch. I personally have set out to start reading some of the books the church or Moody Bible Institute told me not to read. The reason why I do this, and others may disagree, is because Jeremiah says that the Gentiles one day will wake up in a time of what we're in now, and they will realize
Yep.
that their forefathers taught them nothing but lies of vanity and worthlessness. So I've been duped once, family. I'm not going to be duped again by thinking I have all the answers. And so, because of that, I'm on a place where I want to read some of these books that the so called people who put the Bible together are telling me not to read. Why are they telling me not to read these? So
I'm gonna
I'm
stop
not,
you right there
yeah,
just really quick because I agree with you 100%. It's just the signal was slowing down. I can
uh,
hear you, but it was chopping up a little bit. So if you want to just go ahead and just restate that one more time.
so what I'm doing is I'm on a journey, whether some may agree with it or not. I'm on a journey to question everything I've been taught. Not that it's all right or not that it's all wrong. In questioning that, I also want to read these books that I was told not to read because I can't trust my forefathers. And right now, I don't know if I'm going to trust certain men who stole scripture from the original writers to then tell me that they believe that this is all the creator wanted us to have. When you're not, how do you determine what the Holy Spirit was behind when these scriptures were not written by you or given to you? So, whether I'm right or wrong, I have to question everything for myself and not allow a predetermined theology or belief system dictate my journey. Because I believe I serve a father that isn't going to say he's upset because I decided to venture off to seek him, because I believe his hand is on my life. And if I'm reading something that isn't what he wants, I believe he's big enough and powerful enough to say, nope, son, come this way. Nope, son, come this way. But I believe he's a rewarder after those of us who diligently seek after him. When I was riding on a train, and it's in my book, my Welcome to Racism, when I was riding on a train in Europe in 1993. This was what, maybe 2 years after the Berlin Wall came down. I was on my way from Ansbach, Germany, up to Copenhagen. And I was sitting with like the benches, we face each other. And at the time, like I said, I was 20 years old. And so there was a young lady sitting next to me that was probably about my age. And she knew some English. And I said, this is my first time going to Copenhagen. I'm all excited. And she's like, oh, this is my first time too, riding on the train going to Copenhagen. And I said, what? I said, where are you from? And she's like, well, I get it wrong, but is it West Berlin that was inside the wall or East Berlin? So whatever the communist part of Berlin was, the East or the West, that's where she lived. And I said, you mean you're just getting out now? That's been like 2 years ago. I said, you know, aren't you glad to be out? And she looked at me and she said, no. It has taken me 2 years to realize that you're not the bad people I was taught you were.
Mm,
And what that
man.
did for me is it caused me to start to question now everything I've been taught, because cults and evil nations will teach their people what they want them to know about those outside of the wall. And here
Yeah.
she was taught we're evil, and I was taught they were evil. But when the wall came down, it was just two groups of people that were taught wrong.
Yeah.
And so, because of all of that, I personally am on a journey. That's why, you know, Prince Sar Amiel challenges me a lot because I've been westernized. And so I just share that I don't share a lot about what my specific theology is because there's groups of Hebrews that have me come and share, and then they'll ask me specific details about my theology, and I don't comment because all that does is take away from what my message is. I believe know that you are the true Hebrews. I also know within the Hebrew belief system, there's divisions, or I don't want to say divisions, but disagreements in certain beliefs. Is polygamy okay? Is it not? Is this or this? And I want to be an individual that doesn't get involved in that. I want to be an individual that speaks truth to set people free or give them an understanding so that they can then be on their journey to greater understanding. Whether it's my white people understanding racism and now coming into the understanding that you are the true Hebrew, so they're on that journey, or whether it's a black brother or sister that will then begin to dig into whether or not they are the true, chosen of the Most High Yah. But my goal, because if I state theologies, then this group don't like me or this group don't agree with me, and the main purpose of what I'm trying to express is to validate that you are the true chosen of the Most High Yah, which brings a lot
Understood.
of answers to the racism, both in the physical and the spiritual realm. That's where I try to maintain, because, like I said, sometimes I don't know exactly what all my theology is. I know that faith, hope, and love, and the greatest of these is love. Those are the things that will remain. So if I'm producing that, then I know I'm on the right track. I know the voice of my creator, and I'm going to follow him. So, I just throw that out there as just a little bit of a tidbit. I don't have all the answers. And right now, more than ever, I'm afraid to even think I know anything except for what I know he's spoken.
Okay. Now, Marilyn has a second question. I have another. How did you keep from getting upset when you got mistreated or saw someone else being mistreated?
When I was mistreated myself, I remember moving into the West Side, and I was walking up the back steps on a Chicago building, which, if you've lived in Chicago, the old buildings, they got these narrow stairwells because the buildings are back from the early 1900s and all that after the fire. And there was a brother walking down, and as he was walking down, I stepped to the side to let him go. And he said, "You blankety blank cracker moving in here," and he slapped the box out of my hand. For me, that don't make me upset because I have to put myself in their shoes. And then I remind myself of what my white family would have done. They would have done more than slap the box out of the hand. They'd either beat you up, lynch, kill, whatever. So
Yeah.
when I put things into perspective, you know, I'm not a punching bag, but sometimes I may get a punch. And my job, again, is to take a step away from my own feelings and try to understand where that punch came from, that person. Because if I can be the white man that doesn't react like most white people do, maybe they'll see a difference in me, and maybe that'll speak volumes to that person someday, that this person I did this to did not react in that way. I wonder why. So that to me is just part of what I need to endure and accept and embrace that it will happen. And that's okay, because if I was in their shoes, maybe I would be the same way. I've never experienced oppression. I've never experienced being hated just because of the color of my skin. So I don't know how my attitude would be if I had to walk in your shoes, brother. I may be one of the biggest, you know, anti-white people, and justifiably. I don't even judge that because I don't know what I would be. Kind of, I think I do. I'd be a nasty person, if I had to endure. So I always try to put myself in the other person's shoes. And as much love and grace I've been extended, I want to extend that same love and grace.
Marilyn has one more question for you. All
Okay.
right. Great question so far, Marilyn. How do you know if you're being corrected or attacked?
The spirit behind the individual. Sometimes correction and being attacked come in the same form. So, what I try to do is separate my feelings, separate the spirit of attack to see the truth that lies within that attack. And if that person's attack is truth of something that I need to change or something that I need to think differently on or something I need to apologize for, then my desire and goal is to do that. I when I was at Moody, you know, some of the realness of these students came out like, and you say you want to be a pastor? But I remember walking like, to Walgreens or to a store and going past a homeless person and a homeless person saying something and just how they would brush that person off. And I thought, I don't care if the person's homeless. I don't care if the person's on drugs. I don't care if the person is saying it in the wrong way. But if what they're saying to me, I know is true because I know my heart, I'm going to embrace that wisdom and do what I need to do so that I can be a better person. Because ultimately, it is my God that I serve that's going to judge my heart. And I don't care who I think I can fake, who I can smile in the face. I'm accountable to my creator.
Mhm.
And I always want to make sure my name is Dana, but in Hebrew, Prince Saramil gave me Daniel. And when you look at the word meaning of that, it says, God is my judge. And I live my life by that. God is my judge. And he can see my mouth speaking, but what is my heart saying? And that is what he's going to judge me by. So I always want to make sure that whatever comes out of here is coming out of that pure heart and that it's honest, truth. And if I need to change something because it's not correct, I don't care who gave me the message or how that message was given. I'm trying to separate my feelings to take that wisdom so that Dana can be a better person for mankind.
Nice. Constantine sent a message to you saying, Brother Dana, I love your words and your work. And that's a
Wow.
blessing.
Thank
Um,
you.
okay, I have a question for you while we still field some more questions that are coming in. For those that are feeling a calling in their life, but they just don't know where to start, what advice would you give them?
Just start the way you think you need to start. When I was on the west side, sometimes I think because of education and all this, we make it more difficult than it is. And I'm not being insensitive because I understand exactly, what she or this person is or what you're saying. Um, I just started. When I became the youth pastor at that church, I didn't know what the heck I was going to do. And then when I got off the train one day, God just said, "Hey, start talking. Tell them you're going to have a basketball. Go to that park. Tell those young people you're going to have a basketball, court in the church." And so I just kind of started doing what I just thought, okay, this is what I can do. I'll start inviting these guys. And eventually, everything began to unfold. And then I learned that when I finished writing that first book, Welcome to Racism, I was like, okay, now what do I do? And at that moment, I got hit up by one of the followers who was in Mexico. And he said, hey, brother, I just want to tell you that if you ever write a book, here's a program that you can use that will help edit it for you. And then if you need a cover and you need all of this done, here's an app that you can go to get people to get that done. So the Most High just, dropped. You shared a little bit earlier that I'm stuck right now. I wrote the books and now I'm kind of like, okay, Father, I don't know how. I don't want to live off the backs of my Hebrew followers or my followers.
Hmm.
I want to live off the backs of corporate America. I want
Hmm.
to live off the backs of white America. And what I mean by that is that's why I want to get out to the Steve, because there's other aspects. Not everything I have to share has to necessarily be spiritual. Doesn't mean I'm not going to remove the true Hebrew, but I can go and talk about racism. I can talk about stuff like that because it needs to be talked about more now than ever. But I'm like, how do I get to the TED Talks? How do I take my book and my messages in it to another platform where when I go and speak, the company pays me, the school pays me, the university pays me, so that I can live without living off the people who follow me? Because I don't want to do that.
You're training for that right now.
Correct.
Right.
And just last week, a friend, some of you might, if you've been in Christendom, some of the sisters specifically, you might know Michelle McKinney Hammond. Michelle McKinney Hammond was very big in speaking in the Christian realm. She's like my big sister. She's actually the one that lives in Ghana. When I traveled with her one day, the father told me, "I want you to be like a little brother to her." And when I did that, she was looking for a travel manager. I didn't have those skills to be a travel manager, but Michelle was like, "Look, sweetie, I'll teach you." And so I traveled all across the United States with Michelle. I sat at the table with people like Bishop T.D. Jakes. Sat at the table with people like Paula White. I sat at the table with like Creflo Dollar. I sat at the table with like Evans, Tony Evans. These prominent Christian speakers and pastors. But through all of this, I learned. And God already then was preparing me for what's coming when no longer am I the travel manager or assistant, but I'm the one actually going out to speak. I learned. So as I served Michelle, I also learned what I need to know. And so through her, I met a young lady, Sharia. And she used to write for Ebony Magazine. She, all kinds of stuff. Well, here she reached out to me and said, "Hey, brother, I just I want to see if I know you've written some books and I want to see if I can help you." Well, here she's got a whole branding where she's going to help brand me, put the necessary things together, the contracts, the press releases, how to promote me, how to take my knowledge of what I did in Chicago and what I've experienced out there to. She just went to Chase Bank and spoke for Chase Bank, and they wrote her out a $36,000 check to speak to their people about whatever she spoke to them about. So again, I'm using that only as an example that just start with what you know you can do. Don't worry about whether it's right or wrong. Just start doing it. And the fruit of what you do will be a definite indicator. Um, Sometimes that fruit don't come right away. When I when I opened up the gym, and it's in the book, when I opened up the gym for the kids, I was so intimidated and afraid that during that hour, I didn't do Bible study or anything. I just let them play basketball. And finally, about maybe 3, 4 months, I heard God nudge me and say, okay, you know, you need to start Bible study. And so the first time I walked out on the court and I said, okay, guys, we're going to have Bible study, they cussed me. They ran out of the church. And I sat in a gym by myself. I went back the next week. I sat in a gym by myself. At this time, there was probably 50 to 80 kids that were coming. I sat in a gym by myself. A month went by. I sat in that gym with no kids. 2 months went by. I sat in that gym with no kids. Finally, when we were going on 2.5 to 3 months, I was like, okay, God, you're letting me know this is not what you called me to do. And that one day that I was going to tell the church that I wasn't called to do this, a young man walks into the church and says, I heard you let us play basketball in here. I said, yeah. Can I bring some of my friends? The church started to fill up again. So sometimes it's just perseverance. But if you're on the right track, even when you're ready to give up, God will send little things your way just to speak to your heart to say, no, you're on the right track. I know you don't see what you think you should see, but just keep on going. And so that'd
Excellent.
probably be the best of what I can, even with the writing of the books. I mean, just how it all unfolded. I look back and I'm like, wow, how did I
Nice. Okay, one of our moderators was responding to you,
Okay.
sharing what was in their heart as you were sharing about kind of just being in a rut right now and seeing what's coming next, right?
Yep.
And what Shemaiah shared is to ask the Most High how to refine your message in a way that teaches people to recognize their own racism and develop a mission to plant seeds all over instead of giving them all the meat.
Hmm.
The Most High will water those seeds to where they are ready for the meat, and you will already have your books for those that are ready, but develop a ministry of planting seeds.
Thank you for that because that is literally she described it and for me to understand. But that is what Sharia it was kind of telling me. We need to take all of this and we need to shrink it down into tidbits where you go somebody you can share these tidbits that's not too much. You know, a lot of times what I speak is too much for most of my white people to even be able to digest, to even
Mhm.
chew on. So I got to just speak little things at a time. So that's total confirmation. And you know, Sharia herself has been on the Steve Harvey show. She's been on Good Morning America. She was just on The View. She was just on the Tamara Hall show. So she knows what she's talking about. That was where, you know, and sometimes as leaders, it's okay for us to get to a place to say, I don't know what to do next. I need a coach. I need a mentor. And that's where I really turned to Sharia after this to say, I need you to coach me because I do need your wisdom to help me with what I know to do just as that I believe sister spoke to me about putting it in tidbits so it's not too much, you know, for my viewers or for my audience to take. And then those who really want to know, they can get the book and begin to delve deeper.
Nice.
So
One thing
perfect.
I want to bring up is that while everybody was listening, I just want to say, did you guys notice how Brother Dana began to speak about how he became a servant and served in preparation for
Yes.
what his calling was or what his next move would be. But that
Yes.
falls right in line that we are to serve. And once we serve through service, we're prepared for rulership in whichever
Wow.
way that is going to manifest. And so
Yep.
that right there for you guys
Yep.
is some real world confirmation, and just shows you that truly, when you prepare yourself to be used, the Most High will use you.
Mhm.
When He gives you a vision, He will provide you with the provision. But also, just like Brother Dayton was saying, He doesn't tell you the whole he don't tell you the whole plan. You
Right.
have to be willing to be led, right?
Yep.
Um,
And some of
absolutely.
those steps in the wrong direction aren't necessarily wrong. It's just part of the course for us to be taught some things to be on the right. You know, when I used to walk around and pray, God really spoke to my heart and said, "You'll never become a Moses unless you become a Joshua first."
Mm,
So I wanted to be that Joshua, to learn, to receive, so that when it was my time, I could become that leader like Moses was. And Joshua, if you want to say he was maybe even a greater leader than Moses, because that's ultimately, I think, me even as a mentor. I want to see my young people that I mentor become more successful and even greater in making an impact in this world than myself. You know, because I know they can be greater than me.
that's something I can tell you. Well, I can share with you that when the Most High started moving in my life, I understood that the movements that he's making is for preparation for those that will be greater.
Yeah,
That everything that we're doing, we're setting up the next generation because he operates over generations. Because time is nothing to him.
right.
So he operates over generations. So it makes sense that he would set us up to be bringing that next group that would be rocking and rolling. And that
Yep.
somebody has to pave the road so that the cars can go down. Right? Very, very admirable. Um, okay. Um, Let me see, because there's some comments. All of them are positive. First and foremost, there's some conversations going on at the same time, so we're just kind of sliding through them and making sure that we're seeing everything that we need to see. While we're still looking, go ahead and hit us with some of your different hashtags and social media handles.
Hmm.
No, no, I'm talking to you, brother Dana.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hashtags?
Yeah, yeah. Or
Uh-oh.
like your social media handles. Like how would people find you on Instagram
Well,
or
I'm not much on Instagram. I've been
okay,
having an issue with knowing how to put my videos because they keep saying air. I'm on TikTok,
okay,
and this is my fault. But this is I always tell people I grew up in that generation where I still worked on a typewriter in high school, and I got my first computer with the green screen. And so I sometimes laugh. If I look young, I'm not quite that young, and so I'm very socially challenged. So if you go to YouTube, if you just put One Love or put Dana Stevens,
mhm,
my YouTube channel should pop up. I think if you do the same thing on TikTok, you'll find me. But if you go on Facebook and put, Dana Stevens, you'll find me there. But I don't quite have my hashtags and all of that to.
no worries. We have the youtube.coms at One
Okay.
Love Society, and we have
Yep.
106 people in here right now. Can we get 106 people to go ahead and tap on that link and to go over there and subscribe? If we could get 107 people to go over there and subscribe, um, I'm feeling like it's about time to give away another shirt. Um, Brother Dana, as we go ahead and we get this shirt ready to give it
Yep.
away, tell us what's coming up for you in the future as far as where are there any other streams that you're going to be doing? Are there any events that you're going to be a part of or that you're looking to be a part of that we can begin to take a look and prepare to see you there?
One of the things that I'm working on is I have One Love, but I'm creating another shoot off of that called Voices of One Love.
Oh,
And so this channel is going to really be a channel that might challenge some of our beliefs and theology, but I'm purposefully doing that. And so what it's going to be is that I'm going to have different people that are voices out there speaking truth or speaking things for us to think about, coming on and doing some interviews and some discussions with different individuals. But one of the regular shows I'm going to do is actually going to be with Prince Sar Amiel. And we're going to dissect some of the things like he told me here today, and I'm going to do a video on it. But he says, brother, because I said, I just don't understand my white folk. Sometimes they just so stupid, in the things that they do. And he said, Dana, he said, Danielle, he said, let me tell you why. He said, white people have always been driven by conquest. Everything they do is to conquer. And when you move by that mindset, you leave out intelligence. And that's why you see Trump doing some of these things that make you shake your head, because he's literally cutting off the supply to his own followers. But we know, because of stereotypes and all this wrong lies that we've been taught, about who gets SNAP benefits. 78% are white people. But white people would believe that 99% are blacks who are lazy. That's what they would say. Because he said whites have always led by conquest. And when you do that, you leave out intelligence. Perfect example. You're going to kill all the natives that live here when you don't even know how to survive here yourself. You stupid. If you're going to conquer a land, you better at least keep some people alive to teach you how to live. Because you've not, that's why, the whites almost, perished, because they didn't know how to survive through the winter. They didn't know how to, so they had to call on the natives. That's the ignorance. You just want to conquer and you leave out your intelligence, you're going to fail. If they would bring in intelligence, the white man would understand that not only has America been built by our black brothers and sisters, not just off the backs because of slavery, but the intelligence of the black man and the black woman, the inventions, all the stuff that has made America what it is. And if white folk had intelligence, instead of conquering or destroying the very geniuses and the wisdom that comes from people of color, or you, my Hebrew brothers and sisters, you would develop that wisdom. You would develop that, not oppress it and kill it. But when you want to conquer, you leave out intelligence. And that's what my people have done. And that's what they're continuing to do now.
Brother Dana, you bring it like nobody else, brother. You bring it like nobody else. All right. So where we're at right now, Brother Dana has come and he has blessed us with 3 hours. I told you that we weren't gonna have any kind of time
Right.
restraint, right?
Right.
Beautiful, man. Absolutely beautiful. We're gonna take a second, guys, and we've already given to our moderators, we've given to our members. Now we're gonna start giving away to our viewers, to you guys, every single one of you guys that are here with us live tonight. um First of all, we want to tell you thank you. We Your confirmation, the viewers, that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. um whenever God puts something in front of you, it's all, and especially when it's something that to you it's way out of left field. It's something that you can be hesitant with, and with this being such a level of such a high responsibility, um then when we see you guys come back night after night and we read your comments, we see the things that you say, and we see the awakening and just the changes that you guys are going through. It's so refreshing. So we're getting ready to spin our wheel for all of our viewers. um Let me do one last scan, because right now we have all your names being snatched and added in strategically, one at a time. Make sure that this wheel is filled up, and the viewers are going to get two different spins. And the reason that we're doing that is because you guys are so crucial to everything that we do. But just give me 1 second. I'm going to add you guys' names in one last time. And for those that you're wondering, man, how are you doing this? It's willofnames.com. Willofnames.com. It allows us to add all the names of those that are active right now onto a huge wheel. Next time that we go live, we will be doing it through Streamlabs. And when we do it through Streamlabs, we'll have a little more access to show you the different screens and all those things. So let's see who our winner is going to be for today. And we want to remind you, you're going to have to email us at FOINFO at FOINFO2025 @gmail.com. Well, not only is she a viewer, she's going to get Ephesians chapter 4, verse 26. Be angry and sin not. My second daughter's favorite verse. Be angry and sin not. And it's going to Shemaiah 1:4. You are a winner of the Ephesians 4:26 verse t-shirt. And so congratulations to you. Congratulations. And I'm pretty sure you will be emailing us, reaching out to us, and giving us the name, address, all those great things so that we can get it sent out to you. Oh, just an update for everybody's items that they've won tonight. We will be sending them out by Monday morning. We'll get them headed out to you. Excuse me, sorry. And at this point, Brother Dana, is there anything else that you have for us? Let's start there.
No, I think I've done a lot of talking, and I appreciate for you all for the listening.
Most
But
definitely, most definitely. Seeing that this is our first time doing something like this, tell me the positives and tell me the negatives from this experience so we can grow. No, I'm asking you.
oh, I'm sorry again. I was thinking you were talking to your audience. Um, I mean, nothing. Your kindness, and you've been connecting with me for several weeks to prepare for this. Brother, there's nothing, but I feel very good. I feel like anybody you ask, it would be an honor for them to come and speak to you and to your viewers and the listeners here tonight, family tonight. So I just want to say thank you for this honor and privilege, and I pray that the fruit of tonight will produce a harvest in the lives of those that listen and beyond those who are with us tonight.
Amazing. Man, thank you for having the mercy and just the grace to come and take your time. I know that it's pretty late for you, seeing that you were on the East Coast time, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Right,
But
it's
but
pretty
it's all
late.
good. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving. I don't celebrate it. My family's not here. They didn't invite me anyway. So I can sleep in a little late if I need to. And I got some I got some hot dogs and stuff in the refrigerator, so I can have my own little party. But no, the timing is fine. I've got plenty of time to sleep and do what I need to do tomorrow. So again, I'm just really honored and grateful that you would place me on your platform and trust me enough to not hurt your reputation.
Hey, no worry. Hey, the most high, whatever the Lord wants, that's just what we do. And so really just to go through this experience here is like about 45 minutes before we were getting ready to go live. There was still some things I was still figuring out and getting together, and I was just sitting there and I was like, you know what? I was like, from the very first moment that this had even crossed my mind, I knew it wasn't me. I knew it wasn't me in the sense of this is not a personal achievement of mine. I understand and I know when he's telling me something. And I
Mhm.
gauged it on, is this me? Am I just wanting to interview, bro? Like this is just something new that popped up, and I was like, well, if it's me, it's not gonna work. It was like, but if it's you, I already know that everything is just gonna go flawless. And again, everything went smooth. I mean, it went better than I could have even imagined it.
Good.
We never
Good.
had the intention to do a giveaway, and here we ended up producing 4 items, which Some say it should be five, but four items that we were able to give away tonight. And
Well,
then
I
we'll
mean,
get
so
to
let's make it five. Let's make it six because I'd love to give away, one of each of my books. Absolutely would love to do that. So if you want to do the giving away and then you want to get me the address to whom I send it to, I'd be more than happy to do that.
well, let's talk to the chat really quick. I have one more question for you, but
Okay.
chat, would you guys like to get a free? Would you guys like a book to be given out to you, um, from Brother Dana? Is if that's something that you would like, please, I guess what? Put a thumbs up in the chat, huh?
And you won't hurt my feelings if you put a thumbs down. Trust me. I
No,
don't
no,
take
no.
it personal.
I don't think that there's going to be any thumbs down whatsoever. It's overwhelming yeses.
Wow.
Somebody said I would love to see the tattoo.
Well, okay. So this tattoo, I know there's different beliefs and stuff about it, but at this point I have them, so it is what it is. But this tattoo actually was done by one of the young men that I have been mentoring since 1994. I'm still in contact with Paul. When he was in middle school and then went to high school, he had an incredible drawing talent. And one day he drew me. Um, give me 1 second.
Okay.
And so I would always say, Paul, you got a talent. And so when he was in high school, he came to the church one day and he said, Dana, I drew this picture for you. And I took his picture and I framed it. I still have it to this day. And when he came into my house when I was living in Chicago and he saw this picture that he drew, he said it encouraged him and let him know that his talent was worth him pursuing. So he went off to college to, for art, but college wasn't for Paul. And so what he started to do was he did tattoos. And I know there may be people that wouldn't agree with him doing tattoos, but this young man came out of a family that was gambling, did drugs, a rough life. And so for me to see him today married with his three children and paying the bills and getting his kids educated through tattoos, I have to allow my God to deal with Paul as he sees fit. And Paul's talent was so good that at some time, some years ago, if you ever watched Tattoo Rescue, where I guess, they went into these different tattoo parlors and they kind of turned them around. They went to Chicago, and the tattoo parlor that they went to is where Paul was working. And when they left after their, couple weeks of shooting, they marveled at Paul's talent. And so, today I wear this kind of proudly, that this was done by a young man, and he does it all for me for free, because he said, Dana, he said, you did all of this for us kids. You gave us a safe haven to come to the church where you didn't preach at us. He said, you taught us, but more than that, you loved us. So he said, you gave us a refuge. Many of us would probably be in a different situation today if we never had the church to come to get away from everything out on the street. And so he says, it's my honor that I can tattoo your arm, for everything that you did for us kids. So I wear this proudly.
I'm gonna ask you one more question, and then we're
Yeah.
gonna roll with the raffle because it's an overwhelming yes. All
Okay.
right.
Great.
One comes from Carlene Coates. And from what I can gather, she's saying that she had asked a question earlier, but maybe it was too much. And she was only
Okay.
asking because a few months ago, she had found out her true identity. And it was a lot. And she was saying that I only want to know what is right.
Hmm. Wow. Don't fear what might be wrong in your seeking, because we serve a Father that diligently awards those who diligently seek after him.
Hmm.
I think again, kind of like what Prince was saying, we live in a Greek culture that everything is right or wrong, and it doesn't leave grace for us in that process of learning what's right, especially at a time such as now when revelation has unfolded. And so that's why I say I'm on a journey, because if this is revelation, how do I know that the revelation has ended and there may be more revelation coming? So therefore, I've stepped out of the box of fear that was implanted in me, that if I do wrong, if I step out of boundary, God is going to whack me. No, I believe he's going to reward me, because I think he is delighted that we are willing to step. Jesus said, "You must become like little children again." And I believe that is for a time such as now. Really, that's what I need to say. We need to become like children again. And when we become like children again, sometimes we might read or step out that's not quite right, but we have a God, we have a Savior that's going to make sure in the long run, he's going to steer us in the right direction. So fear hinders us, but faith can promote us. It can bring us to a different level. And so I think, don't try to be too stuck on the fear of being lost or misguided. If God opens your eyes to see your true identity, he will walk you through all the steps of knowledge that he wants you to obtain. He who began this good work in you, family, he
Will
will be the
finish it.
one that is faithful to complete it.
Man, we got to do this again.
Anytime, my brother, anytime, it would be an honor for me.
Most definitely. We're gonna have to do this again. All right. So we still have three things to give away. We're gonna go with the two books right now.
Great.
We have all the names loaded up. Um, well, let's see. And again, these next two will be the ones that we will be sending off the information off to Brother Dana, and he will then send off a book
Mhm.
to you. So you're gonna have to email us at foinfo2025@gmail.com. And the winner is at JuanCB53. That's at JUANCB53. You
And
are a
that
winner.
family member can choose whichever book they want. If they want Welcome to
Okay.
Racism or But Hebrew, each person can choose, and I'll give them the book that they want.
Okay. All right. And that's Juan CB53. Email us so we can get your information over to Brother Dana. We're going to go ahead and we're going to tap off one more. The very last shirt, the Nevertheless shirt. We're going to save that to the very, very end. But we're going to go ahead and let's give it another spin. I can get used to this. All right. Chef Sammy Sosa, you are a winner. Chef Sammy Sosa, again, make sure that you reach out to us at FOINFO at 2025 at gmail.com, and we will get your information over to um, Brother Dana, and he will then send you your book. Congratulations. Truly, congratulations. Brother Dana, thank you so much for coming in. Um, I will be back in touch with you
Great,
many more times.
great. I hope
But
so.
always keep us on your mind and reach out to us anytime
I
at
will.
all.
I will.
Because at the end of the day, man, this has been a blessing.
Then the mission and the purpose of our time together has been achieved.
Yes, sir. Hey, man, you have a wonderful night. Make sure that you
I
get some
will.
rest.
I will. And
Um,
shalom, family. Shalom to you all.
Shalom.
Peace and grace and love be poured upon you, all in the word shalom.
In the word, it says that we have the ability to leave our peace somewhere. And my brother, I leave the peace of me and my family with you.
Thank you.
You have a
Thank you,
wonderful day.
family. You
Get
too.
yourself some
Thank you.
rest.
I will. I will. Thank you
All
again.
right.
Good night, family. Good night.
All right, everybody. That was our Q&A session with Brother Dana. I pray at this point in time that you guys understand why we went forward and we did something like this. This is the very first time that we've ever done something like this. Um, and I'm praying that it's not going to be the last. Because at the end of the day, what we received tonight was not only an awesome testimony, we got understanding that when we go through suffering, it's all how you take it. That a lot of times when you suffer, it's the guardrails that's keeping you from going off into something that you have no business going off into. But also, when you don't achieve what it is that you set out to achieve, it doesn't mean that it's over for you. Oftentimes, our mind and our heart is focused on achieving things that we have developed in our mind and heart, which has nothing to do with what the Most High has for us to do. You learn in this walk with the Most High that one of the things that's the most apparent is it might sound weird, but your plans don't mean anything to the Most High because what He has for us is always what's the most important thing to happen, and just to see the journey that Brother Dana has went through, and the fact that it didn't make him jaded or it didn't turn him, but in fact it brought him to this point to where uh, 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 he was ready to receive. And that when he received, he got right back to the work. That every single one of us can take a deep breath of fresh air and say, "Man, God is really moving. He really is." We never want to come on and not give you the opportunity to receive Christ. For we know that truthfully, there's only one way into the kingdom. There's only one way. Whether you call him Jesus or Yeshua or Yahweh, according to the scriptures, we talking all to the same person as long as you base off what you call him off the scriptures, not off a painting or off a picture. We know that the true battle that every one of us faces is the fact that every single person that's been born has been born with a debt. And as we continue to go through life, that debt ends up being is sin, in fact. And this debt that we have is something that um, can only be paid in one way. And that although all over the world they may have a thought process that you can pay for this debt of sin, all these different ways. Some think that you can go to apostles, some think that you can go to the Pope, some think that you can go to Mary or to Joseph, or some people think that you can go to Muhammad or through Islam. Some think that you can go through Buddha. Some think that you can go through Hinduism or Taoism or ancestors or burning sage and crystals and all these things. At the end of the day, there's only one way to get into the kingdom. There's only one, and that's going straight through Christ. For he's literally the only form, the only currency that's available. And that's what we come forth to share with every single person. It was such a blessing to do this Q&A. And it was a wealth of information that was spread and was given. And it's something that's great because it gives us an understanding of the time clock, of exactly where we at. But never forget that it doesn't matter what nation, what tribe, what tongue that you come from, that one was sent to redeem all. He completed that task. And if you don't receive him, then that debt is outstanding on your life. And the soul with sin on it, without a shadow of a doubt, there's only one place for you to go. For when there's sin on your soul, it's as if hell has the rights to your title, to your deed of your soul, that you must go there. But Christ came to pay for not only the debt, but to be the propitiation or the fulfillment of the wrath of God towards us for all of our wickedness and all of our sin. And that's what we come to share with you, is that truthfully, Christ is the only way into the kingdom. Those that will accept him, that will call upon him by name, the name that you know him by. You might know him by one name and your brother might know him by another name, and that's totally fine because he understands your heart. He can read it, he can see it. That all those that call upon his name shall be saved. And that shall is SHALL, is guaranteed, is for sure, without a shadow of a doubt. No matter what you do, take your opportunity to receive Christ. We heard from the brother Dana, that the calling on his life was something in a whole different direction than what he originally had set out. That he was privy to information that, although it was hidden before, he's exposed it now. So what do we do with the information that we got? Do we get angry? Do we take revenge? Do we be upset? Do we be jaded? Or do we say, boy, what a task that we have on our hands to love those that do wrong to us, to be merciful to those that do wicked to us? That now that we understand why things are the way that they are, can you still love? Can you still have mercy? Can you be long suffering? I understand that we stopped off at 1 Kings chapter 19 last night, and we will pick up right there tomorrow, right on time. If you enjoyed tonight, I would ask that, you would put a thumbs up in the chat. If it was something that you felt was fruitful, something that you felt could produce and answer questions for you. Did you enjoy the raffles, the giveaways, whatever you want to call them? Did you enjoy the designs? We really enjoy spending time with you. I myself don't really like sitting down when I talk to you, but I'm not going to lie. It feels good on the legs. We're getting ready to pull all the names that's in the chat right now. So if you want your name in this next raffle, drop anything at all in the chat right now. We have one more design by Miss Kindness that's going to be going out. Look forward to these designs being placed in the dykb.org store. And once they all get placed, we will share them with you, and you guys will have the opportunity to purchase them. This will not be our last giveaway. But I want you guys to really soak in what you heard tonight. You got a lot of real world experience tonight. We had some good fellowship tonight. We always talk every single night about how do we get that flesh under control and get it to sit down low while the spirit rise high in us. And that one of the things that some of the things that we need to do is we need to read the word, listen to the word, take notes on the word. But also we need to praise and worship and fellowship. Tonight we did some fellowshipping. And if you take what it is that we fellowshipped on, there's some exponential learning opportunities in there. There's some things to really learn and understand and really hold on to and then take it to the next level. You have to teach me about that, Shemaiah. But at this point, let's go ahead and grab these names. Grab the names. Let's sort them. This might be something that you guys can use in your work parties and create a list. Oh, wait, is this still? What a night. What a night, man. Sometimes you sit back and you put things together, and as you put them together, you sit there and you say, man, I really just don't know how this is all going to pan out. But when the Most High has something for you to do, no one can stop it. There we go. This right here, this what do you call it? Oh, spinner wheeler. It's for all the viewers that's on right now. Wi-Fi DW, you made it just in time. Oh, you on the list? There we go. We're gonna spin, and while it's spinning, let me grab the shirt so I can show it to you. This right here is our hashtag. Nevertheless, look at that. I know it's backwards, but it's all right. You can kind of tell. That's that. Nevertheless. Woo. Let's see who has grabbed this one. And remember, whoever's name this is, you got to email us over at foinfo2025@gmail.com. And we will have the wow Wi-Fi DW. Talking about perfect timing. You are the winner of the hashtag Nevertheless t-shirt. Please send us an email to foinfo@gmail.com or foinfo2025@gmail.com with your name, address, matching it up to your YouTube name. So we can get you your shirt over to you. All items will be sent off this Friday. 2 books were donated by Brother Dana tonight. And for those winners, when you get your name over to us, we will get you your book sent off to you. You guys have a fantastic night, and thank you so much for your support. When the video of this comes out, I'm asking that you guys would go and drop comments and give us some feedback on this one down in the comment section of the video. It usually takes an hour or two to, process, but we would really like to hear some feedback from you guys. There isn't anyone else on the list that we were looking at interviewing or bringing on for a Q&A session, but um, if from the beginning of the time that we start doing this Bible study tonight is any kind of evidence of what can happen, whatever it is, pray about it. Pray about it and operate in it. Because at the end of the day, the Most High is listening. He really does love you. And the things that he can do for your life have nothing to do with what you think he can do. That every plan that he has for you, it's fully planned out, even though you might not see it or understand it. So trust him. Spend time with him. And pray for those that love you and those that hate you. I know this is a little bit of a different night. You guys have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.